Okay. Thank you all for joining us tonight for our ANC meeting. This is our info session portion before the official start to our meeting. Tonight we have DDOT speaking to us around TSI 2.0. So Sahar, Mignon, if you want to go ahead and kick us off, we would love to learn more about this new process.
Okay, one moment. Sorry, another team member wants to join. I just want him to be able to listen in. I'm trying to send him that link.
Sahar, Mignon, while you're sending out that link, do you want to go ahead and pull up, do you have a presentation for us or anything that we can share with the community for them to look at?
I actually do have a presentation. I'll make that visible, and then I'll also send that to you and the other commissioners after the presentation so that you can send out for your own review afterwards.
Okay, we do want to go ahead and get started. I know you're trying to send that out. We do have a pretty packed agenda, and I know this is top of mind. So if at all we can help with sending out the link, please let us know.
Can you all see my screen?
You can, thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so good evening, everyone. My name is Mignon. I am the Community Engagement Specialist for Ward 1. Tonight I have Sahar with me. She is with the Traffic Engineering and Safety Division, one of the managers, and she also oversees the TSI, formerly known as the Traffic Safety Investigation Program as well. So she's going to assist with the questions at the end. So if you guys just let me present the presentation and hold off on the questions at the end, that would be awesome. So again, I will be presenting the Traffic Safety Input Program, formerly known as the Traffic Safety Investigation. So if you know, the new TSI process started last month in I believe the first week of January. So with the TSI 2.0, as we refer to it, I'm going to go over basically the purpose and the need. So as you all have known, DDOT sent out, introduced the TSI 1.0 program last year in 2022. And then when we had presented that program, we did see some challenges and feedback. So one of the challenges and feedback was the first come, first serve approach without a prioritization model. Basically, ANC or a resident would submit a TSI, and we basically, again, had that first come, first serve evaluation if we would move forward with the traffic safety investigation or not. And then with that, we saw a dramatic growth in the number of new, also duplicate results, resulting in delays. So I know being a representative for the agency, I got a lot of complaints and about the delays, and that was one of the issues. We were just receiving a lot of TSI submissions and not necessarily having the bandwidth to actually go through with all of them. In fact, with the new process, I believe we had even completed over 900 work orders. So that's a lot of work on our end that we were able to complete. And then also another challenge with the older 1.0 process that we noticed was equity concerns. TSIs were overrepresented in certain wards and underrepresented in others. So with the new TSI 2.0 process, I guess you guys want to know what's changed. So safety-centered prioritization model. Basically, with this model, we have a list of objective factors rather than the unlimited first come, first serve approach that we previously had. Also, with the new process, we have a commitment of set number of TSIs every year, which will be 800 locations per year. And I want to stress it's locations, not necessarily TSI inputs, 800 locations that we will select throughout the entire year. And then also, of course, another change is it's no longer investigation. We want to call it basically your input. But we also want to highlight, and you can see in that graph, that the TSI program is not the only program within DOT that we can address certain concerns. I know a lot of concerns can be addressed with our bus priority program, with our Vision Zero program, and then Safe Routes to School, and then the others listed in the chart. So these blue programs, as you can see, are proactive safety programs that deliver long-term transformative change. So what has not changed with the new 2.0 process? We will maintain accessibility, transparency, high quality deployment of engineering countermeasures. We will also maintain same level of operational performance rate. And finally, we will have the same quality and type of interventions, which will increase with steady, predictable work rate. This in turn is a more strategically planned safety improvement throughout the district based on everyone's input. And a few slides ago, I talked about how now with the new 2.0 process, we base our selections with our prioritization model, which is basically a list of objectives that we will investigate when we go about selecting. Some of the objectives include crash patterns, equity, race and ethnicity, transit stations and schools. So you can kind of see the variety of objectives that we use when determining which TSIs we will move forward with for the year. And if you want more information, you can always go to the DDOT's webpage where we have the TSI overview, and then we include this prioritization model as well. Okay, so with the prioritization model, which is pretty awesome in my opinion, like I stressed earlier, we're doing the 800 locations per year, not necessarily TSIs. So with the TSIs, well, when we select locations, this is great because as you can see with our bundling system, we might be able to incorporate various TSIs within the surrounding area of that specific location that we do decide to select. So as you can see in that graph, we selected intersection A. However, within that parameter of that intersection, there's various TSIs we were able to complete. So one location may include multiple TSIs, and the bundling process allows DDOT to take a more comprehensive approach to each location. So I want to break down the 800 locations per year. So basically, each quarter, DDOT selects 200 locations throughout the 8 wards, okay? And so for each ward, we are guaranteeing a minimum of 10 locations. So basically breaking down, Ward 1, you're guaranteed 10, a minimum of 10, okay? And then once we disperse 10 for each ward, we will then pick the top 120 TSIs from all wards. As you can see for the first quarter of the year, Ward 1 has 19 locations that we have selected for the first quarter. So as you can see, We gave Ward 1 a minimum of 10. However, we went back and looked at other TSIs that were submitted, and we selected an additional 9 that we thought were top priority, like locations that needed to be investigated. And to ensure that all TSIs are prioritized in all 8 wards every quarter, again, a minimum of 10 priority locations. And I want to stress again, while the remaining 120 locations are prioritized based on the universal, regardless of the ward. So you can kind of see like Ward 8 there has 29 locations that we're going to investigate. And so moving on, which I think is pretty cool, because I know I get a lot of emails. What's the status of this TSI? What's the status of this service request? This is our new traffic safety input dashboard. Is awesome for, and it's very user-friendly for ANC commissioners or the general public to search their own status of their TSI on the dashboard. So the 19 TSI locations that we selected for this quarter, you can investigate. So you can go to the dashboard, and there's the link below. And of course, I'll send it in the chart, in the chat as well. But you can go to the TSI under investigation. And then from there, I think it's pretty cool. You can search by ward, ANC, single member district. Also, if you already just have the service request number, you can type that in and it will pull it up if the selection was located as the for the first quarter. Also, once we get the ball running, we can also search by pending installation, completed field installation. However, if your location was not selected or TSI was not selected this quarter, you can always check the TSIs for future consideration. So what I also do want to point out is, let's say your TSI was not, or location was not submitted this quarter. Don't fret. That doesn't mean that we're never going to get to it or we've decided not to move forward. We're going to keep it in that system to then be looked over with the prioritization model to see if we will select it for next quarter. And then again, the 200 locations that we decided to move forward with this quarter was released on January 6th, and the next 200 will be posted on the same website in April, July, and then October. Okay, so I'll open it up for questions.
Great, thank you for this. And we'll have commissioners go first, and then community members. Community members, if you have any questions, please drop it in the Q&A. Or if you would like to come off of mute, we can take you off. Just raise your little hand at the bottom. So first, Commissioner Lakatos.
Hi, yeah, thank you for coming and giving this presentation tonight. I just have one kind of quick question. I saw the prioritization model that you released. I'm curious if you're able to share the data on how the TSIs that were put into like the review, like the ones that weren't being considered this quarter, how they were actually scored. Because I've gotten emails about people who are like, oh, they closed my TSI. It's not in the bundle that got in there. Why is that? And I mean, I know you have the data. I figure it would be helpful if you would be able to share that with the ANC, but also broadly the rest of the district, because it would help people understand maybe why this one wasn't selected at this moment, just like for transparency's sake.
Well, and if Mignon, if you don't mind, I can take that. So Commissioner, yes, we have been going back and forth on this. I just want to be very honest. It's very complicated for someone who does not have like the technical expertise to necessarily understand, because it's not just the absolute score, as Mignon covered. We also have all those other filters, like let's first make sure we pick the top 10 in each ward and then go around and pick the additional locations, right? So that's one additional factor in addition to the scoring. And on top of that, as it was also mentioned, the selection has been geared based on to basically skew the model towards local and collector roadways, because DDOT has several proactive programs that primarily focus on higher functioning roadways and arterials. So because of all these additional selection, even if we give just the score, it may not necessarily be the top 200 scores were selected in the city, right? So it's just like a very complex model, and we ask the community to trust us. And we have actually, I did see your FOIA request, and I have provided that, so that documentation is coming to you, so you can look at it and feel confident that there is a lot of math behind all of this. And I also have written a detailed information document on how the scoring works and how the selection across wards, even the 80% from local collectors versus 20% from arterials. I have made some explanation why that ratio was selected. There was really a lot of thought that went into it, and it's really hard for residents to not have all the background data that went into their TSIs to just see that score, and for that score to have meaning. So for example, if Mignon, if you don't mind sharing your screen again and go to the chart that showed all the factors, the pie chart. So we have 5 main categories of factors that we used for this prioritization, and each category then again has like multiple factors in them. So the inner ring, thank you, Mignon. So the inner ring shows the 5 big categories, and then the outer rings show the individual factors. So each of these individual factors are pulling from a GIS database from open data. So not knowing all of the data that goes into that, you just see a score, and that doesn't necessarily make any sense. So we actually even thought about putting that score on the dashboard, but we don't think that provide a meaningful or necessary information for the resident. What folks want to know at the end of the day is whether or not their location is being investigated or not. So honestly, with all the transparency in the model, we're hoping that everybody trusts that we're not deliberately trying to push one up and not the others. Where we have those documentation that you requested ready for you. I think we were just waiting on one piece of information, that was the staffing information. We were waiting on our contractors to provide that information, but all of that will come to you, and you are more than welcome to share with your constituents. But I just wanted to clarify why you may, for example, see that one TSI that is selected in one ward may not necessarily have the highest compared to another ward, because of all these other selection filtering that is in there to make sure we touch all 8 wards, and we make sure we focus this program on our neighborhood roadways as opposed to other major roadways. Which also, TSI toolbox is very limited in what they can offer on those roadways. For example, speed humps are generally not recommended for major roadways. So because of some of these limitations, we designed this model more in line with what the scope of this program is, what the types of interventions are, and where we should push this model to select more from. Also, like, all these factors are basically, especially when it comes to like crash and roadway characteristics criteria, they are selected primarily based on the types of interventions that are in our toolbox. For example, you can see in the roadway characteristics, we have intersection traffic control, number of travel lanes, and intersection angle. And these are all, for example, selected because as a measure of how complex an intersection is for pedestrians or for vehicles to cross. So if an intersection is signalized, it gets less score compared to an intersection that is stop controlled or not controlled or yield control. So based on hierarchy of control, you may get like higher or lower score. Or for example, under crash patterns, we have different direction crashes. So these are the most dangerous types of crashes, such as angle, such as left turn crashes. And We want to make sure we prioritize locations that have higher number of these locations, as opposed to just looking at total number of crashes, which could also include a lot of side swipes or less dangerous types of crashes. So it was a very thoughtful selection of criteria, and hopefully once you receive all the information you requested, you have a better understanding. But we're also happy to answer any other questions.
And just to hop in here very quickly on the same track, with all due respect, I think DDOT owes the community an explanation of, why these TSIs were chosen. And I appreciate this model right here. But when communities have been affected by crashes or they've lost neighbors or loved ones, it's not like it's more important that they understand the prioritization, because we have not hit our Vision Zero goals. So DDOT does owe an explanation, and I'm looking forward to hearing kind of how these are factored in. Even if it seems overcomplicated, I think people want transparency. Commissioner Kinsick.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Sahar, that was a lot of information. I got to be honest. I think anybody looking at this would be confused. I mean, it's a lot. I'm not really understanding the prioritization, first come, first serve, how the people were notified about first come, first serve, how the word was put out. You kept mentioning everyone's input. Whose input? I'd like to know whose input that is. The TSI requests, if they're like anything like these charts you just gave, I could understand why they're duplicates and things being confusing. This was a little confusing for me. So I would actually love to take this offline and meet with you in person and discuss this and really get a grasp of what you just presented, because I'm not even understanding who's prioritizing all of this. It's a lot. That's really, it's more of a comment. Thank you.
Sure. So the prioritization model takes several thousands of TSI requests that DDOT has, and we have automated. So the model was written in Python code, and all of the factors that I'm showing here, they have relative weights, and the weights are here, like you can see, like they're kind of relative to their length in this ring. So out of the 100%, you can say relatively how big of a weight each of these categories carry. So each location, based on individual criteria, receives a score, and then based on all those individual scores under each category, a total score is calculated for each location. And then based on the total scores, they are ranked against each other. So that's how the prioritization works, versus the previous model, which was basically any request that came in, depending on when they were received, they would be evaluated. So because of the volume, the outstanding volume and bandwidth that DDOT has, our concern was with the thousands of requests coming in and us following service level agreement and addressing these on a first come, first serve, we might actually lose sight of those priority locations that Commissioner Harris just pointed out. So we actually introduced this model to make sure while we're chasing these CSIs, we're not losing sight of locations that somebody may have actually died. And so to that comment, Commissioner Harris, one of our big criteria here is non-motorist crashes. So if any location has had even one non-motorist crash, a pedestrian, a bicyclist, someone on scooter, they would receive the full score for that criteria. So these locations are actually being prioritized. Another criteria is proximity to Vision Zero high injury network. So we have corridors that are identified at Vision Zero high injury corridors, and based on how close the location is to any of these corridors, they receive additional points. So if they have proximity to multiple corridors, for each corridor, they get additional points. So locations are prioritized based on real safety risk and safety issues whether it's a crash history or potential risk because of proximity to these corridors or because of challenging geometry, so that we don't lose sight of high priority hot locations, as opposed to just reviewing and investigating anything and everything that comes in. Because frankly, some of these are just people can put in requests in a matter of 3 seconds. And sometimes these are just literally Twitter posts that turn into TSIs. So for DDOT to be just using our resources to chase these, we will lose sight of the actual locations that need our attention. So that's why this model was produced. It's not, and we actually chose our capacity based on the capacity of delivering field implementations. We don't expect our delivery in the field to be affected by this, because we are committing to the similar level of implementation. It's just a way to make sure we focus that attention on the correct and the right places, not all over the place based on one person's input. And I think you also made a point about everybody's input. That's I'm not sure if I understood that question, but my assumption is that you are talking about the bundling approach. And that's when a location is prioritized, then every TSI, including all duplicates or TSIs that are in vicinity of that location, will be reviewed before we recommend interventions and provide work orders for the contractor.
And yes, thank you for that. I think that is important. And just to clarify, I think my concern was defining these prioritizations, defining these categories. Some can be confusing, and I appreciate you highlighting the non-motorist crashes. I think that's important, but we're looking for transparency into a complicated process. Commissioner Jones.
Thank you. And thank you to our DDOT guests for explaining this. I'm one of the people who would go around my neighborhood finding dangerous intersections and submitting via Twitter. So I am responsible for that part of that. And I appreciate that approach is not equitable and not fair. Right? Safety should not be distributed by who happens to be on 311 more or less. So I'm glad that DDOT is taking this approach. One concern that I have, though, is that you mentioned that fatal crashes will receive the full points for non-motorist crashes, but as you mentioned, there's a lot of other factors as well. So I can imagine a scenario where an intersection regularly kills our neighbors and isn't prioritized. I'm about to ask you policy questions that you were not involved in designing, so I apologize for being a bit unfair in this. But what I would really love to see DDOT do is have a separate queue so that every time there is a fatal crash or a crash that results in serious injuries anywhere in DC, there's automatically an investigation launched.
Yes,
that needs to be on top of the TSI process, which can also cover everything short of that.
Right.
But it looks like there is a possibility that fatal crashes can go uninvestigated, or rather, the intersections that cause fatal crashes can go uninvestigated, and that seems like a serious problem.
Sure, that's definitely not the case. So DDOT Vision Zero team in coordination with actually my team and several other teams at DDOT, we have a standing weekly fatal crash review meeting. So we have a special task for addressing fatal crashes and also very serious injury crashes. So when any of these crashes happen, we meet weekly with a very large team across DDOT. We discuss, we also send several engineers to the field with MPD to investigate. They hear firsthand from MPD. Of course, we also received a report. They hear firsthand from MPD on site what exactly happened. And then we all meet in a larger group with MPD officer present in the meeting. We all look at the location on Google. We discuss what happened. And and then Vision Zero team comes up with a plan, and then that plan moves into engineering design and implementation. So that is not something that we rely or we're waiting for residents to tell us to look. We're already doing that. So that's outside the TSI program. For this particular location though, even if a location previously was investigated or was not, I don't know, there are historic data, there are things that may have not been addressed. I can only speak about what is the current practice, and for the 3 years that I have been at DDOT, that is not, TSI is not how we address fatal crash. Also, I want to point out that as I've mentioned, Hindray Network for Vision Zero, we are actually proactively advancing projects, and every year we're tackling multiple corridors based on our capacity and doing corridor projects, which we think are more appropriate and more transformative than doing spot safety improvements based on TSIs. And that's another reason I mentioned that we want to make sure TSI focuses on neighborhoods locations. These are usually not locations we see fatalities. We might every now and then have these fatalities are random, but generally fatalities and injuries happen more on the bigger corridors that are more dangerous and higher speed. And we have several other proactive programs that handle those issues. Also, we have an annual safety improvement program. That's another program. We call it ASAP. We have a dashboard. And this program also delivers safety improvements at 100 locations every year. That's another proactive program. So we had a slide actually on Mignon's presentation that covers all of our portfolio, all the other safety initiatives. And TSI is really one piece of this big pie. And that's the only part of our program that is reactive, and that only focuses on additional input. I mean, just relying on residents to really tell us where to look, because there's always not data to support, there's not always crash records for these locations. There is not always somebody, like these are on our blind spot. So that's why we have this program, to have residents help us know where to look. But when you have thousands of people putting these requests, then there needs to be some prioritization scheme. Otherwise, we will have to drop all the other proactive programs that we believe are more transformative to just chase these TSIs.
Okay. Thank you for these thoughtful and long explanations for these. We do have one question from the audience, and Commissioner Jones, if you can take that person off of mute, but I will say, please keep your question to a minute, and Sahar, please keep your explanation brief as much as possible. And if you both can share your email addresses in the chat, and community members, if you have other questions, please reach out to your commissioners. Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay,
Yeah.
Great. I live near the intersection of 16th and U, and as you all probably know, that's a very high risk intersection. There was a fatality there in 2021, and I know Sable is aware of that, and I think you submitted, requests for a study. I don't really see much of a change there since that 2021 fatality. I know you closed a slip lane, one of the slip lanes, but I see red light runners constantly, especially late at night. Also, pedestrians worried about getting hit by left turn cars that aren't really focusing on the pedestrian intersection and looking at oncoming traffic to make their turn. So I wanted to ask for an update, if you have one, about is there anything pending on that intersection that's going to increase the safety? I also don't see a red light camera going off there. And if there isn't one there, we really need one. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure. I think I would rather have time to look this up properly without, providing a response in this meeting. So if you don't mind following up with Mignon, and we can take this offline and provide you with any planned projects.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Sahar and Mignon, for joining us this evening. Please drop your emails into the chat. Also, if you can share the presentation that you gave tonight with commissioners, then we can share it out to the community. That would be most helpful.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Okay. Thank you all for joining ANC 1B tonight. We do have a packed agenda, which I think most attendees are here to learn more about the Reeves Center. That will be coming up in our Economic Development Committee. But I will call this official meeting to order at 7:12 p.m. Mr. Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Commissioner Handrahan.
Present.
Commissioner Holohan.
Present.
Commissioner Sycamore.
Here.
Commissioner Lakatos.
Present.
Commissioner Kensick.
Present.
Commissioner Fields.
Present.
Commissioner Harris.
Present.
And Commissioner Jones present. So we have 8 out of 8 commissioners present.
Thank you. Commissioners, you have an agenda before you. Are there any changes or modifications to this agenda? I believe actually we have a few, so we do need to add under the Alcohol Beverage Regulation Committee updates several settlement agreements. So we have one for POP, we have another for Flash, another one for Nellie's. No, we do not have one for Flash.
Nope, Flash not yet.
Apologies.
Well,
So
we don't have one for Nellie's either. But we do have
Okay.
one for Pop and Tolly.
Okay. Just as a note, we cannot sign any of these settlement agreements without voting. I believe the full protest hearing for Nellie's has been issued on a continuance. And so we can talk about that further in
Yeah,
the
their lawyer
ADR.
is fully aware. However, she did not get me the information I needed to get this settled before today's meeting.
I'd like to be a part of that too, please.
Commissioners, so which ones are we voting on this evening? Can the commissioners who represent the areas let me know?
So, Santiago, you have Pop and Tolly, I believe, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Okay, with that, we will add those. Are there any other changes or modifications to the agenda? Commissioner Sycamore?
Hi, have we already added Mr. McLaughlin to our agenda?
We have not, but I'm assuming to the public safety and community engagement.
Yes.
Okay. With that, do I have a motion to approve the agenda and the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda as amended and the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, reports and action items, financial reports. Commissioner Lakatos, do you have an update for our QFR?
Yes, I do. One moment, if you'll allow me. The ANC in Q1 of FY23, I just got access to our bank accounts. We received our allotment in October. The ending balance at the end of the quarter is $194,775.83. There was only one payment that was issued, which was $8,000 to Common Good City Farm, which I believe was approved by the ANC in the past term, which was in December. And I will be providing a copy of that to the rest of the commissioners before we file that with the OANC.
Thank you. Public safety and community engagement, Commissioner Fields.
Yes, so at our first meeting, we had a couple of attendees, Commissioner Alan Kinzick and Karen Gow, who's a committee member. For new business, we have share updates with the Mayor's Nightlife Task Force, update requirements for sponsorships, and we're developing a community listserv. So if any of you guys would like to be added, if you would, personally message me in the chat, and I'll also leave my email so that you can be added to our updates. And lastly, we will have an assistant police chief come to the next meeting to share a crime report. Our next meeting will be held on February 21st at 7 p.m. via Zoom.
Thank you. And Mr. McLaughlin, can you go ahead and raise your hand so then Commissioner Jones, can you actually promote him as a panelist instead? So then if there are any slides that he needs to present, he can.
Yes, I just attempted to do so.
You may have to disable speaking and then re-promote him as a panelist. Oh, never mind.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great. I know you have a busy agenda, so I will move through these as quickly as we can while still giving you the information you need. So I'm Mike McLaughlin. I'm here with the Department of General Services. Really glad to be here. Moving to the next slide, just real quick, I'm gonna give you a quick introduction to DGS. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about the legislation that brings me to you today, which is the Public Facilities Environmental Safety Amendment Act. And then we're gonna talk about this month's remediation, which occurred at Raymond Elementary at the Meyer Swing Space on 11th Street Northwest. And then we'll pause for quick questions. Also happy to take questions after the meeting. So just real quick, if you're not familiar with the Department of General Services, we build, maintain, and sustain DC's real estate portfolio, which includes more than 42 million square feet of district-owned and leased assets. So this is just some interesting numbers for you if you're interested. I won't drain it, but we do manage a lot of properties, both buildings and recreational space across the district. Some of these faces may be familiar to you if you follow DGS. So Keith Anderson is our director. External Affairs sits under him, led by John Stokes. You see me on the left there, and I work with Wayne Gore, who leads community engagement for all 8 wards. So we are here today to talk a little bit about testing required by the Public Facilities Environmental Safety Amendment Act. So the short version is that this law was passed by Council in 2020. It amended 2 existing laws, the Healthy Public Buildings Assessment Act and the Safe Fields and Playgrounds Act. The amendments basically focus on increasing community engagement, including ANC outreach like this meeting, all surrounding proactive routine testing of environmental risks. I'm happy to talk after this about what all the risks are that we test for, but the important thing to know is that the amendments really push for more community engagement, which is what brings me to you. Our building testing cycle is on a 10-year cycle, so it's an ongoing requirement to test buildings throughout the district, whether it's schools, recreation centers, agency space, all those sorts of things. We test for a variety of environmental risks. And then recreational space specifically, sort of synthetic fields, which could be playgrounds or athletic fields, get tested on an ongoing 3-year cycle. So again, no end date. These are recurring testing that occurs across the district for all of these sorts of sites. So in the interest of time, I'm going to move into kind of what brings me to you today. We had one actionable test result at Raymond Elementary, which is in the Meyer Swing Space currently at 2501 11th Street Northwest. The results were received on January 17th, and the short version is the results were remediated and the playground was reopened within a week. And so I'm going to give you a little bit more detail on the next slide, but that's kind of the high level version of what went on at the Meyer Swing Space last month. So to kind of get you oriented, these are the 2 playgrounds at the Myers Swing Space. We're going to focus on playground B, which is the one closer to the parking lot there. Both were tested for lead on the surface. So this is a little bit different than the water testing. We're talking about playground surfaces being tested for lead. So it's those synthetic fields that the play equipment sits on. There were 3 types of tests that were conducted to assess lead levels. XRF screening, which is really sort of X-ray screening, bulk sampling, which is what we'll focus on, and then surface lead dust wipe analysis. So through those 3 tests, one of them, the bulk sampling, resulted in positive lead in excess of the allowable amount. The important thing again to note is that with a bulk sample analysis, you're basically rinsing the rubber or synthetic surface that the playground sits on and testing what is washed off of the surface. So there's a distinction there between the material itself and what is sort of sitting on top of it from environmental factors. And so when we separated the surface from what was rinsed off of it, basically the dust and dirt that was on top of it, we found that the dust and dirt contain lead versus the playground material itself. And that's an important distinction because it means that the lead likely came from the environment. So when it rains, there are a wide range of factors that may bring lead onto a playground surface. It could be from road traffic, from cars, it could be nearby construction, could be any number of external environmental factors. And so that's where the lead was found. So to kind of give you a sense of what happened after that, we got the positive test result. Within 24 hours, we closed the site. So that occurred on January 18th. Within a couple of days, we were able to do the remediation, which in this case, when it's environmental lead, what we do is we wash the surface with a TSP solution and then HEPA vacuum it off and then retest the surface. So some of the photos on the screen are just examples of workers doing that remediation over the weekend of January 21st. After that was complete, the playground was retested and found to have acceptable results. And so we were able to reopen the playground within a week of getting those positive test results. So the playground was closed from January 18th to January 23rd, and then it was reopened on January 24th. And it remains open for use today. So in terms of what we did to make sure that the community was informed, there are a few things sort of summarized on this slide here. Within 24 hours, as I said, the site was closed. We put up DGS maintenance signage. When there are long closures, we would put up more detailed signage, but in this case, the remediation was fairly straightforward because of where the lead was found. Second, we informed the ANC. We notified Commissioner Sycamore by letter, which is also something that you can find on our website, which I'll go into in just a second. Additionally, DCPS informed its own community members so that parents and families were aware of what was going on at the school. And then finally, the website. This is a new site. We stood it up a week or two ago, so it's kind of exciting news to share. So you can find kind of more information about the process that I'm summarizing here, as well as that notification letter all on the site. And I'm happy to take any questions about that or about what I'm sharing with you today after the meeting. But commissioners, if we have time, happy to take a couple questions now. Otherwise, my contact information is on the screen. You're welcome to email me at michael.mclaughlin@dc.gov or visit our website at dgs.dc.gov.
Thank you. And if you can also share that in the chat, I think that would be helpful. And then to remove the presentation from the screen. Commissioners, if you have any questions, please raise your hands. I do see a question in the Q&A from a community member, so I'm just going to surface that now. This is from Ms. Karen Gall. How often do you retest after remediation treatments? Monthly, yearly? What does the time frame look like?
So after something is remediated, it goes back into the testing cycle. So it produced an acceptable test result. So that's typically what happens. But again, there's a lot of nuance here. So if you have a specific site in mind or something you're concerned about, I'm happy to talk to you about it further, but that's sort of the general response.
Okay, and there's one more question. If the lead contamination came from environmental factors, that seems like an ongoing risk and the contamination will recur. Does DGS have a change in maintenance and or testing to deal with this?
So similar question to the last one. So let me connect with the team to make sure there's not more there that I can share or some exception. So let me connect with them. I'll put my information in the chat and we can talk after this if there's more information to share.
And Commissioner Kinsick, if you can keep this fairly brief, that
Yeah. Mr. McLaughlin, nice presentation. Love DGS, worked there for 2 years. I will tell you that they do have a remediation team. Brian Killian led it. Now I know he's in a different position now, but they are able to handle such future issues. So I don't want to get ahead of myself, but yes, from working there, they do. Thank you. That's all.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us, Mr. McLaughlin. Yeah, and if anyone has any questions, please reach out. And same with commissioners. Zoning, preservation, and development, Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Commissioner Harris. So the ZPD committee met in January. We reviewed existing and anticipated cases and other questions that the committee is likely to review in the next several months. I won't review all of that right now. That's all in the committee minutes that we just approved. There are no recommended actions for the commission to take at this time. I will take a moment to say if members of our community, anybody living in the 1B area is interested in joining the committee, you are more than welcome to join. Please contact me, Commissioner Tucker Jones, at 1B09@anc.dc.gov, and I will put that in the chat as well. There's one correction to the agenda that I would like to make, or to the written agenda, which is that our next meeting will most likely be Wednesday, February 22nd. The reason for that is to not coincide with the public safety and community engagement meeting. The date had not been adjusted to that date yet. That will be on the website. But again, the two takeaways are, one, if you're interested in joining, please email me at 1B09@anc.dc.gov. And two, the next meeting will be on Wednesday, February 22nd at 6:30 p.m. via Zoom. And I will add that in the chat in just a moment. Thank you.
Sybil, I think you're on mute.
And you are next, so economic development, but I wanted to know if you can actually speak to updates that aren't related to the Reeves Center, so we can get through those first, and then we'll go to Reeves Center.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Commissioner Harris. So my name is Larry Handerhan. I'm the Commissioner for LaJoy Park in 1B01 and the current chair of the Economic Development Committee. Good to see such a great attendance at tonight's meeting. A few quick things before we jump to the main agenda this evening, which is going to be presentations from the Reeves team. As Commissioner Harris said, there's just a few quick things to cover. Administratively, I want people to know that we meet the third Thursday of the month at 6:30. Those meetings are open to the public. The next one, which may be relevant based on the conversation tonight, is Thursday, February 16th. We're also looking for new members, so most of the committee members are joining tonight, and I will put my email in the chat, but we're a fun group and would love a few more folks who would be interested in our work. We have one item to cover before the representation, and that's a motion that is related to some of the activity happening around 7th and T Street, specifically, and there's interest from the committee to incentivize the development of the former CVS site and the parking lot next to it. so that can be an anchor of productivity in that area, which has increasingly had some public safety and quality of life concerns. I want to say a couple things about this, and I'll read the full motion. This property is owned by Howard, and there are reps from Howard on the line. They've been a really great partner with us, both in this intersection and more broadly with ANC 1B. And I know they are committed to moving the development of that property forward. They also just put up a fence around the T Street side of the property to address some of the public safety concerns with the wide open area on T Street. Those public safety concerns are myriad, but I think the one that's most important to me personally is that there was a problem blocking egress of the sidewalk for especially around kids getting to school at Cleveland Elementary. And so we hope that the fence will kind of prevent activity in that area that would be troublesome for egress. But as people know, that area has gone through a lot of challenges. I do want to give Teresa Edmondson like 30 seconds to weigh in here. Sable, should I do that before I read the motion, or should I read the motion first?
And go ahead. Teresa, if you want to, I see you, but if you want to go ahead and raise your hand, if you want to comment. Commissioner Jones, if you can go ahead and promote Teresa, just enable. There we go. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
You
Yes.
sound great.
Hi, commissioners. Thank you for having me tonight. Teresa Edmondson, Community Association Manager, Howard University. And yes, it was to start out with the win, which is the fence. The fence is definitely a win. And I have been invited to be on the mayor's T Street task force. And just last Thursday, since then the fence has gone up. And so yay. Now regarding developing the site, this site is in the development pipeline and a developer has been chosen. The holdup is WMATA. That the CVS sits on it's above the train. It is a big tunnel underneath that site that the train goes directly from the Shaw Metro straight underneath. So we're waiting to get a meeting. Howard is working diligently to get a meeting on the books with WMATA, and that will determine what can be built there. And that's where we stand. So movement is happening on that site for sure, as with all of the other developments in our portfolio. But that is the update, just to tell you. So.
Thank you. I think that's
okay. Thanks for having me.
That's great to know. Thank you, Teresa. So I still think, I'd like to honor the Economic Development Committee's ask that around this resolution, which was voted on 6-0. I'll read the full resolution, and that is that the Economic Development Committee recommends ANC 1B send a letter to Howard University requesting that they activate the CVS site and parking lot on 7th Street immediately due to concerns with student and public safety, with an expedited plan to develop the property.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Chair Harris. Okay, pivoting to our major agenda item tonight. I think a lot of people, and maybe while I do the introduction, I would just ask that the presenters raise their hands in the chat so we can elevate you so that you're able to present. It's Corey and Simone. So the Reeve Center is one of the most important sites in not just 1B, but all of Ward 1. I think people know it's at U Street and 14th Street. It's owned by the city, has been used as a city property ever since the current building's construction. DemPed had put out a former RFP. We have talked about this at 1B many times, but they decided to reopen the RFP due to a couple of changes in the development process. The first being different city functions will be housed at the site, which actually frees up more space for the development teams to use. They also amended the former RFP to include the requirement that a hotel be at that site. I'm going to dump the link in on All Things Reeve so that people who are interested in learning more and haven't learned more can check that out, although I'm not sure I'm able to send it to everyone. So Chair Harris or Secretary Jones, if you can share appropriately that link. There's a lot of really good information on the DEMPED site. So DEMPED reopened the RFP in December. 2 developers bid on the opportunity to redevelop the site. They've joined us this evening, and they're going to be giving back-to-back 5 to 7 minute presentations. There was a disposition hearing last week, so I know a lot of people were able to hear from these development teams already. I have to say that the presentations were excellent and really hit on the key information we had talked about the last time. So I personally don't feel like we're starting this process over, but I know that in some ways we are. So the goal of this evening is to give them another platform to talk to the community about what they plan to do at the site. 1 month from today, on March 2nd, ANC 1B will vote on a resolution that is drafted by the Economic Development Committee meeting, sharing what we support and don't support when it comes to this site. That means we have 30 days for community engagement, and we really would like people to be involved this evening, to come to our next Economic Development Committee meeting, and then to join us for the vote on March 2nd. I do want to thank DEMPED, who adjusted their selection calendar to make sure that we didn't have to vote tonight, because we want to give the community a chance to hear from the development teams, and also ask a series of questions that some of which we have and open up for the community. So Chair Harris has laid out a couple of rules of the road for the presentation tonight, so we can move this quickly. No more than 7 minutes for each developer. We'll have the ANC commissioners go next with no more than 3 minutes, although if you can do 1 minute, that'd be great. And then we'll have community members ask questions for 2 minutes each. So
and we do have a timer. Hopefully did not jinx it. So this is very official. And then if there are any remaining questions, please email your commissioners or email Commissioner Handerhan directly. We can absolutely surface those at the Economic Development Committee meetings, or your commissioner can surface that to Commissioner Handerhan or to DEMPED, whatever is needed. We want to make sure, although this is an expedited process, that people still feel heard and that this isn't just getting rammed through. So with that, Commissioner Handerhan, if you want to lead the discussion, I'll let you take it away.
Great.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Handerhan, just really quick. I just got a request to explain what an RFP is.
So that's a great question.
Request for proposal.
Yep. So that's basically, and we do have a rep from DEMPED on the line too, who, if I mess up, we can jump in, but just to expedite, a request for proposal is a way that the district who owns this property says, here's what we want at this site, and requests proposals from developers to meet the qualifications that they put out in that document. I'm sure I butchered that somewhat, but you can actually see the RFP at the link that is in the chat that actually says the specs for the site, what DEMPED is looking for. This is a by right development, so there's no community benefits package or something like that, but it is owned by the district, and so it will go through what's called a public disposition process via the RFP. Any other questions? That was a great question. I think a lot of us are learning as this develops, myself included.
I did just get one more text message, sorry, from a watcher. They said, please remember that this is alphabet soup for many of us. Please explain any sort of acronyms you might use. Just as a reminder. Thank you.
Yep, it's a great reminder. So DEMPED is the deputy mayor for planning and economic development. That's the branch of the city that runs real estate situations, deals and processes like this. We talked about what an RFP is, and if there's any other acronyms that I used, please drop it in the chat and I'll explain what it means. I think I'd like to turn it over to the first of the 2 development teams, and in the spirit of what Commissioner Sycamore just shared, one of these two teams will be selected by the district to build what they are talking about building right now. And so they're going to talk about their respective plans. And I'm going to ask Reeves CMC Ventures to go first. And that presentation is being given by Simone Goring-Devaney.
You're on mute.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you, commissioners, for the opportunity to present the Reeves CMC proposal to redevelop the Reeves Center. Can I share my screen, or should I just?
You can share your screen. I will start the timer once you get that going and start talking.
Okay. Can you see that? You see it?
Yes, we see that.
Okay, great. Thank you again, commissioners, for the opportunity to be here to present the Reeves CMC Ventures team's proposal for the redevelopment of the Reeves Center. I'm Simone Goring-Devaney with CSG Urban Partners. And our team includes CSG Urban Partners, Capri Investment Group, MRP Realty, Michael Marshall Design, PGN Architects, Smoot BC, and Bradley Site Design. We are excited to present our vision for the reimagined Reeves Center. We propose a project that is uniquely transformational, that will create a living heritage, that will achieve the objectives of the amended comp plan and achieve the district's affordable housing requirements. We will establish an open and welcoming public plaza and amphitheater, and we proudly incorporate the new national headquarters of the NAACP. Music and arts are the cornerstone of our project, and we feel that those uses will create job opportunities and occupations in the creative industry. So our proposed programming includes approximately 536,000 square feet of space. 108,000 square feet will be Class A office space divided by the NAACP and other government and non-government tenants. We'll have a 116 key residential hotel, 22,500 square feet of retail space, including space for local businesses and a replacement post office. The space will be anchored by a new restaurant concept by Parlor Hall and a Dave Chappelle comedy club. We'll have 44,000 square feet of arts, education, and entertainment space, including an Alvin Ailey School and new homes for the Viva School, Washington Jazz Arts Institute, and the Christian Tabernacle Child Development Center, which is now known as the Love First Child Development Center. We'll have 322 units of mixed income multifamily housing and a 17,000 square foot Frederick Douglass Public Plaza and 200 seat Marion Barry Jr. Amphitheater performance venue. So from public realm perspective, the center of our project will be the Frederick Douglass Plaza and the Marion Barry Jr. Amphitheater, which will be surrounded by arts, retail, and office connected space to activate that public space. We will have entry to the courtyard from two locations at the corner of 14th and U, and also along V Street. Along U Street, we'll also have the entrance to the Viva School, the office lobby, and also additional retail. The Ailey School, retail, and the hotel lobby will be located along 14th Street, and we will have the entrance to the residential lobby and our 366 space parking garage and front in and front out loading dock. This is a rendering of what the courtyard and public space will look like. We'll have a mix of residential units from studios to 3 bedrooms. We're proud to have the NAACP have its new headquarters at the Reeves Center and to be a full partner in the development. Our arts and education partners include the Viva School, the Ailey School, Washington Jazz Arts Institute, and the new Love First Child Development Center. So our community and district benefits include our focus on arts, youth, and education. Our destination design and programming, one of our commitments is to make sure that we bring back the existing farmers market so that they have a permanent home, and that we'll be providing institutional and timeless architecture. We're partnering with Think Local First DC, which is an advocate for the local small business community. Our team embodies the principles and practices of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And again, our core development team is CSG Urban Partners, Capri Investment Group, and MRP Realty. We're a development team that will be minority controlled and led, and we all are highly experienced development organizations with expertise undertaking large, complex, public-private real estate development projects. All of our design and construction team is minority and women-owned organizations, and our nonprofit partners have been operating in the community for an average of 75 years. So we feel that our arts, youth, and education is the cornerstone of our project. We're building a monumental development worthy of the District of Columbia. We will implement the Duke framework. We will activate the site with the plaza and the amphitheater, and we will bring back Black Broadway. We'll provide visitors with a residential hotel with larger spaces, and we achieve social equity by maximizing minority ownership and participation in the project. Again, thank you for the opportunity to present this evening. You can find more information about our project at reevescmcventure.com, and I look forward to answering any questions.
Thank you so much, both for the very helpful presentation and keeping us under time. In fairness, I'm going to ask the second presentation to go and then take questions on both presentations at the end. I just want to make sure we get to both. So from Legacy Community Partners, we have Corey. Do I see? Yeah, Corey Powell. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me?
You sound great.
Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Everyone see that?
Yep.
Excellent. Well, thank you for having me. Again, I'm Corey Powell. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Dante's Partners. I have the pleasure of presenting the Legacy Community Partners vision for the Reeve site. The key thing for us is building on the rich African-American and cultural history of this site and the neighborhood. We started with developing a team of local Black, Brown, and women-owned firms. So 3 key team members: Dante's Partners, 16-year-old company is based here in the District of Columbia that is focused on its trademark of luxury affordable housing for the last 16 years. The Menkiti Group, which is a nearly 20-year-old company that's 100% minority owned, based here in the District of Columbia, that is created over 3 million square feet of residential and commercial properties, representing about $350 million in emerging neighborhoods. EB5 Capital, which is run by Angel Brunner, which is a 15-year-old Black women-owned organization that's developed nearly $1 billion of real estate investments, including 13 hotel projects, and Soto Architecture and Design, led by Fernando Bonilla, who we've had the pleasure of working with on multiple communities. In addition to which, we will be welcoming the NAACP to the site, to the office component of the project for their new national headquarters. And their missions are completely aligned with ours, and they'll be an equity partner and investor in the office and hotel components of the project as well. So overall, our project is relatively unchanged from the last time folks may have seen this, to the extent that you saw it in our last submission. The key components are still there: 180 key hotel, a 100,000 square foot office building, which will partially be occupied by the NAACP, partially by various district agencies. A roughly 250 unit residential building that will be designed and built much in the vein of Dante's Partners' other residential communities, such as Capitol Vista and Parcel 42, which we've had the pleasure of partnering with the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development to complete. a new senior housing community, which based on what we have seen as a critical need in the community from our experience with Livingston Place at Southern Avenue, the Todd A. Lee residences at Kennedy Street and Delta Towers as well. Those components will also contain retail at the ground floor of the multifamily building, a brand new plaza at the corner of 14th and U Street, with an amphitheater and a central plaza to the community as well that starts to break down this block and it makes it accessible both outward and inward. Our multifamily building, again, will include about 299 units broken down between the various unit types that you see below. We will meet 10801. Again, we will be designing this and developing it much in the vein of Capitol Vista and Parcel 42, as I talked about previously. The ground floor, as you can see here, has a food hall, which we will use as a mechanism for economic development. Various organizations will be able to come here, start their first quasi bricks and mortar location. It's also used to activate the street as well to give us a busy space. I'm going to move on to the next piece. This is our senior component that looks into Marion Barry Plaza, which will be arts focused. This is the senior component, which will also have a for sale component to the project as well. In both this building and the Barry, which was in the prior slide. We plan on being in a position to provide housing for a diverse spectrum of individuals. This is an image of the Moxie Hotel that we plan to bring to the site. In addition to the hotel, we will also have Songbird Music Group, which will occupy the ground floor and lower level of the space. Provide an amenity there as well. The new office space, the new Reeves Center, again, will be the home of the NAACP, and we will have other district agencies there as well. The DC Central Kitchen will operate the cafe of this space, again, in the vein of creating economic development opportunities for individuals and organizations. This is Marion Barry Square that I mentioned previously, which again, will house an 8,500 square foot food hall, multiple businesses. I'm pleased to share that one of the other tweaks that we made to the project based on the feedback that we received from the community was bringing Constellation Theater to the site. And we are, as we were in the previous proposal, making sure that we have accommodated the farmers market, which will continue to operate in this space. I mentioned the various retail opportunities. Go over it again. DC Central Kitchen out of the Reed Center, Songbird coming to the Moxie. We're also bringing back U.S. Postal Service to the site, in addition to another 50 or another 6,000 or so square feet of retail space at the ground floor of the Barry. This just shows a quick diagram of the underground parking, which will be accessed off of V Street. We have roughly 150 parking spaces, which is primarily driven by us pushing the parking underground, space limitations, and what we heard as we went out into the community in terms of ensuring that all of the loading, et cetera, was integral to the site itself. So that will all happen underground and off of the major streets around the site. Key for us, again, public land for public good. We're using this as an education mechanism through DC Central Kitchen. The farmers market will come back. We've looked at this as an intergenerational site for individuals of all shapes, sizes, and ages. We're bringing the DC Funk Parade back, which ties to our focus on culture. Again, growing Ward 1 businesses through our food hall, and bringing Constellation Theater to the site from a cultural standpoint. Key things, commitment to local businesses. There will be a significant CBE participation on the project with NAACP as an owner in the project as well.
And Mr. Powell, I'm sorry, your time is up.
Okay.
You have 30 more seconds, that's okay. But if not, then we'll need to end it there.
That's it. Hyper local team, active civic and civic engagement, pathways of opportunity are key for us, and our group is rooted in the community. Thank Thank you for the opportunity to present our vision.
Thank you.
Thank you both so much. So we are going to go to questions. As a reminder, the first presentation was Reeves CMC Ventures. Presentation was by Ms. Goring-Devaney. The second is Legacy Community Partners, and that was Mr. Powell. I think it's just helpful to remind folks which presentation is which. And we will start with commissioners. I'm going to then transition to some questions that the Economic Development Committee members had, and then we'll open it up to the community. If people want to put them in the Q&A, that is a good way to get in the queue, and also for us to make sure we have a record and get you an answer in writing, just if we end up running out of time. Are there any commissioners who have questions and like to raise their hand? Commissioner Lakatos?
Yeah, I have a question and a very brief comment. I'm curious for, well, I think this is probably for Reef CMC. I noticed your the amount of parking is significantly increased. I understand the housing wasn't decreased, but that also had to do with some other factors. I'm curious if you would be willing to decrease the number of parking spots in exchange for increasing the amount of housing, because this is a very transit dense walkable area. The second one, before you answer, it's a comment more for DEMPED, which is people have expressed, constituents, members of the Economic Development Committee, commissioners, expressed a desire to understand the income breakdown of the units that are being proposed. I would really appreciate if that were something that could be provided before we were to vote on any sort of resolution. And I believe a lot of people would echo that feeling. But yes, Ms. Goring-Devaney.
Yeah, thank you for that question. We would be happy to increase the amount of housing and reduce the parking, but it's not a direct corollary. So because the parking is underground, even if we reduce the number of parking spaces, we're not going to get more housing units above. But we will continue to evaluate the parking. There's a lot of parking there at the Reeves site already. And so we just think based on the traffic and congestion in the community, adding the additional uses with the hotel, all of the arts uses, we really do need to have a significant amount of parking, but we will continue to refine our parking plan.
When it comes
I hope
to
that
housing,
answered your question.
when it comes to the level of affordable housing, I am gonna so Commissioner, I think it's an absolute fair question. I'm gonna drop in the chat what we heard from DEMPED when we asked that, because it's as you noted, it's not about the development teams, it's about the process overall. But it's a great question to kind of lead with, and I'll put something in writing that we can revisit if people want to later. Commissioner Sycamore.
Yeah, actually, affordable housing was my big question, but we're going to be going into that later. But I do actually want to say the exact opposite of Commissioner Lakatos. I think actually getting parking off the street is actually a fantastic idea, because if we're going to be building these condo buildings and these apartment buildings, then we need them off the street. So I think that's absolutely imperative. So thank you so much for considering that. I appreciate it. Other than that, my question is more or less been answered. Thank you.
Commissioner Chair Harris.
Thank you both. I have two questions. One for Reeves CMC, and I'm not sure if I missed this, but this has come up from community members and even myself. Would you be willing to reconsider the name of the comedy club with the departure of the DC Center for the LGBT community? This seems to send kind of the wrong message.
We have been in discussions to bring a comedy club. We've been in discussions with Dave Chappelle. As you know, he's from Washington. We do understand the sensitivity, and we would be happy to continue to have discussions so that we can address those concerns and make sure that we are answering questions that members of the community may have. We don't want to alienate anybody, so we definitely would welcome the opportunity to sit down and continue to have those discussions and see how we can make sure that we're honoring the existing uses of the Reed Center, but also bringing in some new uses with the comedy club, helping to activate the site, providing more opportunity for people to come and enjoy the Reed Center. But we've had discussions and we do understand the sensitivity of the nature of.
Sure. And I think the comedy club is a good use. I think the issue is with the name. So, I wonder if there are any anyone in our community who may know of other historic comedians that are maybe from DC. But I think it's worth exploring because it has come up a few times.
Okay.
My next question is for Legacy. How do you plan on ensuring your food hall doesn't compete with the businesses that are already on U Street? As another point of context, ANC 1B has a lot of liquor licenses and restaurants and bars, which absolutely contributes to the vibrancy of the area. But Chairman Anderson for ABRA noted that ANC 1B has a lot of liquor licenses and we are often in front of the board. So I wanted to check in to see how you are ensuring that these new food and restaurant and potentially bars are not competing with what is already here.
Great question, Chairperson. So as we typically do in our projects, we'll conduct a market study, which is going to require us to really understand what's happening in the neighborhood. So, if there was a Chipotle, for instance, a block away, we wouldn't be looking to put a Chipotle right here at our site as a very tongue-in-cheek example. But I think it would start with us doing what we typically do, going out, understanding what's in the neighborhood. And, as we've sort of done with this plan overall, figure out what we can do to complement and not take away from what's already here.
Great. Thank you both for presenting tonight and looking forward to further conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kenzik.
Yes, just want to say thanks for the presentations. I really don't want to take too much time because of the constraints. And also I want to hear from the people on the call, the participants. I'm going to just lay it out again regarding V Street, the traffic backup. 1B05 has an issue with it. I think 1B in general has an issue with it. And we're all very concerned. I'd like to see what we can do to challenge what DDOT has said or where they're getting this information that we can't use the U Street entrance. I get it. I mean, it's a main, but V Street is just going to back up and it's going to go back into 1B04 or 1B03 all the way down to Whole Foods. So it's just something again, and the other thing is parking. Commissioner Lakatos and I have a little bit different point of view on that. I definitely want housing, affordable housing, it would be clear, but the area is congested and does not have enough parking. We have 1250 U Street opening up, 106 units, no parking. We have now businesses, so how are you going to allocate between the 300? So this is for both of you guys, the 300 parking spaces, the 150, who are they going to be used for? The business, the hotel. How are you going to factor in the people that come here for church, and actually want to go shopping in the area on U Street and actually go down Black Broadway? How are we going to accommodate that? Reeves currently does that. It has. I've parked there for many years. I have guests parked there now. It's just something that community has brought up. I'm going to yield back my time and let the community speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you guys, either one of you parking, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was a statement, not a question. On the parking side, look, we are looking to maximize parking to the extent possible. We've got constraints as you've mentioned in terms of entry point at this point. If that changes or something that we're willing to evaluate, we've also tried to do what we can to ensure that we're addressing another key community concern that we had in terms of making sure that the loading is integral to the garage and not happening on the street and further exacerbating any traffic issues. So there are competing things that we're trying to balance if we're successful and fortunate enough to be awarded this site. There are continued conversations that would happen with the ANC, the community, and DDOT to make sure that we address as many, if not all, of those concerns.
And likewise, we want to continue to work to make sure that the entrance to the parking works for the community, but we have been given direction about where the entrance should be located. I can give you a breakdown of our parking. I wasn't sure if you wanted that level of detail, but we do have the parking broken down between the various uses.
I'd like to see that offline, but thank you.
Okay, sure. We'd be happy to share that with you.
That'd be great. And just because I know it's come up with the Economic Development Committee, could I get maybe like a sentence from each of you on the construction plan for parking? We know that that's going to be disruptive no matter how you do it, and hoping to minimize it. Commissioner Fields.
Thank you guys both for presenting. And it was great to see you all last week. My question is specifically for Legacy. I wanted to ask, I know that you guys have listed in your presentation that there are 13 plus businesses. And so I wanted to know if you could list any more of the businesses that you guys are looking to add to the area. And in addition to that, any community sponsorships or partnerships that you guys are looking to that will accommodate the youth in the area.
And I see Patrick jumping in. Just want to make sure I can answer that, Patrick, as I saw your face pop up.
We're going to turn to Patrick for some of the DEMPIC questions in the chat after the commissioner questions. So
got it. Understood. So what we showed was that we have space for that number of businesses. Commissioner Fields haven't established 100% of those. The businesses that you saw on the screen in terms of Constellation Theater and DC Central Kitchen and others are who we have locked in to date, and we would continue to expound upon that as we go through the process to make sure that those businesses are filled out. But we were sort of speaking to what we have in terms of stalls and space to accommodate businesses that would come to this site.
Commissioner Jones.
One moment, I need to start the timer on myself. So first off, thank you for coming, both of you, and I'm sure other members of your teams are present as well. So thank you for that. So as you are probably aware, under Mayor Bowser's administration, the district maintains a goal to bring commuter trips by car, including taxi and ride hailing, down to a level of 25% by 2032. Additionally, Mayor Bowser's Vision Zero plan aims to reduce the number of traffic deaths in DC to a total of 0 by 2024. These are ambitious and worthy goals. These are things that the request for proposals put out by the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development incorporates, such as noting the proximity to the metro, requiring that any bus stops temporarily displaced be put back. Could you speak briefly about anything that your teams have done to go above and beyond the minimum requirements that the RFP had on non-car transit that support Mayor Bowser's goals in reducing car share of transit and in her Vision Zero goals?
I guess I can field that one first. All I can say at this point, Commissioner Jones, is we would be working with DDOT. There's only so much we can do from a public space perspective. What we have tried to do is be as thoughtful as possible about the placement of the buildings on the site, given the constraints, and making sure that it's as open and pedestrian friendly as possible. But I think for us, those additional mechanisms that would happen outside of the constraints of our site would be in conjunction with DDOT. And we have a pretty strong history of working with them to deliver other projects throughout the city. So have no concerns about coming to outcomes that work for both DDOT and feed into the plan that the mayor's outlined.
Yeah, and we will work with DDOT also to make sure we're achieving the mayor's goals for transport safety and getting cars off the streets. I mean, you see it around all over DC now with the additional bike lanes and reduced parking. We will have more than the required number of bike parking spaces. So we want to make sure that we're providing those spaces for residents, for people that come to the site, to the retail and the other uses by bike. So that's one aspect that we will make sure that we commit to having more than what the required biking parking is, and that's one way to get more cars off. So, but we'll continue to work with DDOT and the community.
Thanks. And Commissioner Handerhan, if you wouldn't mind, I have a 15-second follow-up comment. I see the logic in how providing bike parking and other safe storage for bikes scooters, other like non-car mobility options would incentivize more trips by those options. By that same logic, it seems like providing more parking spaces would for full-size vehicles would incentivize more trips by full-size vehicles, which goes against Mayor Bowser's stated goals. So I would like to just point that out, that there are other goals, like there's a lot of great stuff going on here, but I would like to both teams to think about what sorts of things they're incentivizing. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. I'm going to ask one question on behalf of the Economic Development Committee, but I also am going to take this opportunity to talk about a few process things. So I'll ask the questions first and then transition. I would also just encourage the questions to keep coming in the Q&A. I'm going to cluster them together. We'll start with DEMPED questions that can be answered by Patrick Smith, and then we'll go to the development teams. One question I wanted to ask, just in my commissioner hat, is if both teams could please share a little bit about what they plan to do to support the unsheltered population that calls the immediate environment home, as well as the quality of life issues that are associated with that.
So our team, we are very aware of the challenge of the unhomed at the site. One of our partners, Quentin Primo, has the Primo Center in Chicago, and they have been providing services for homeless families in Chicago. And Quentin plans on bringing those same services to the Reeve Center to be able to replicate some of the cutting edge services and programs that the Primo Center has been able to provide. So we are very aware of it, and that's something else we will continue to work with the community to address the issue and make sure that we're being sensitive in how we move forward with people that are there at the Reeve Center.
So this is an area where we're not experts. If you ask me how to design and build something, I can give you a dissertation on it. What we have been fortunate enough to do on other projects that we've developed throughout the city is to be able to include permanent supportive housing units, which are designed specifically for individuals that have challenges with finding a home. We work with a number of service providers across those different sites, 3 different service providers, if I'm thinking of it correctly, across about 150 units throughout the city. So I think just sort of being able to tap into that network, take best practices and apply it to what we're doing. And then, fortunately, we have a portfolio of units and communities that we've developed throughout the city that, may be a place where we can help solve the key issue of where folks lay their heads at night as well.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
So the next portion of the Q&A, I'd like to turn to Patrick Smith, who's the representative from DEMPED. He has the really snazzy background of the current Reeve Center. And so Patrick, a couple questions for you. And if you could just be super quick, that'd be helpful. Can you talk about the construction timelines in the RFP?
Yes, but first, did Councilmember Nadeau's office have any comments? I saw that she had joined, Lauren had joined.
Lauren has been with us since the start, so.
Okay, just.
Yes, sorry, no comments from me, but we did attend the meeting last week and are on top of the current planning and all of that.
Great, thank you. Just want to make sure the council member had an opportunity. So timeline, we anticipate awarding mid-March. We're waiting for the ANC 1B resolution so we can consider it and give it great weight. And so we're looking at mid-March. Then we're looking at getting to the point where we could, after that selection, negotiate with the team, hopefully get it to council sometime summertime, perhaps. But ultimately, what we're really shooting for is to get to construction start in summer of 2025. And based on projects of this size, probably take between 36 to 48 months.
Great. Thank you. A couple other projects. We got a couple questions in addition to timeline for you, Patrick. Can you talk, the question is the land privatized, sorry, in this project? Can you talk a little bit about what that looks like for public disposition?
What do you mean by privatized?
It's a question from a commenter, so I think maybe if you can just share how the deal will work, that's probably the right answer.
So currently district projects, unless it's a for sale product, such as condominiums or townhomes, or anything where a person owns it fee simple, except for that, we will enter into a 99-year ground lease with whoever is selected for development of the land, also known as a long-term ground lease.
Great, thank you. I think there's one other question that you might be best suited to answer when it comes to, so there's a question about the post office, and I know that was, retaining the post office at the site is the plan. Can you speak more broadly about what we're going to see in both plans, because it was in the RFP, when it comes to district functions? And I know that that's a little bit of a loaded question because some things haven't been decided, but I think that there are a couple questions that ask that.
Right, per the RFP, we had requested 50,000 square feet be reserved for municipal uses. We have not yet determined exactly what those municipal uses are. The post office is not a municipal use, but the post office, you'd have to ask the respondents, but I believe that they have engaged with both respondents regarding the site and coming back to the site.
Excellent. Thank you. Would like to keep you on retainer for future questions, but I'm going to try to cruise through these in the chat. And then if you want to raise your hand, if you'd prefer to ask a question live, please do that. So first question, how is the Reeves, this is for Reeves CMC. Can you talk a little bit about how you would honor the legacy of Frank Reeves?
So we plan to keep the name of the Reeves Center, and I don't know if it was in our presentation, but we plan to have artwork. We'll have a big banner that will have Frank Reeves' picture on it, which will hang proudly from the top of our project. So that's how we plan to incorporate the memory of Frank Reeves, given his importance to the city and the 14th and U Street corridor.
Great. We have a couple questions about architectural design. This is going to be for both. So start with you, Corey. Please discuss your architectural design concept and how it adds to the aesthetics of the community. And then a part two is going to be specifically around the public space, because we got a kind of follow-up question around the orientation of the building on the lot.
Sure. Along U Street, the idea there was to sort of hold the street wall with some visibility into the building, and just sort of pulling lines across. If you look at the image that's behind Patrick Smith on the screen, you'll notice that what we've done along that side is to, thank you, Patrick, is to pull a lot of horizontals onto that portion of the site. Key for us was also just opening up the block, so you'll notice the curvature of the building at 14th and U that really we're using to sort of pull people into the site and not just make this about the edges. And then as we sort of turn toward the more residential side of the building, using building materials that are more in line with what one would see in a more residential area of the city, with brick and other masonry materials that sort of break down the scale.
Thank you.
So we realize how important this site is. So we wanted to have a project that has timeless architecture. Also, because we have the public plaza and the amphitheater, we really wanted that to be the center of our project and to draw people into the center. So that's why we have the amphitheater. We think that that's going to be a great place for people to gather. And we just wanted it to be a project that really was worthy of the 14th and U Street location. And it's like a civic, a civic statue. And it will honor Frank Reeves, as I said, Marion Barry, and Frederick Douglass. So that was the thought process behind the architecture. And we'd be happy to answer any more questions that you might have about components of our plan.
The next question, will both developers respect recent legislation requiring bird-proof glass?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. The next question is around housing, and we understand there are some things that you're not in a place to talk about yet, but I think speaking to this issue is really important. So the comment is from Judy Floyd, former commissioner. I'm concerned about being family friendly. Did I see correctly? The first proposal, which is CMC Reeves, only has a couple of 3-bedroom units. You could both speak a little bit about your approach to family sized housing units. That would be great.
Yes, so we are committed to having family-sized units. So there will be an amount of square footage that's dedicated for affordable housing, and we can, recalculate the number of 3-bedroom units. So that would change the unit mix to have less 1-bedrooms and more 3-bedrooms. So that was just our initial plan, but we can definitely look at having more 3-bedroom units to make sure that we have those family size units.
Across our building, particularly in the intergenerational building, we did focus on trying to create as many family size 2- and 3-bedroom units as possible. We're in terms of affordable housing, folks are welcome to visit our website and look at communities that we've developed throughout the city to sort of understand what our commitment there is. But we are, relative to the bedroom sizes, focused on trying to create units for as many different family sizes as possible while ensuring that we do incorporate a critical mass of larger bedrooms.
Thank you both. Next question, will the developers consider including a Minute Medical Clinic given the proximity and importance of Howard University Hospital?
For the legacy team, that's not currently part of the plan, but something we're open to discussing.
It's not part of the CMC venture team plan right now, but if we have available space, we'd definitely be open to considering it.
Just to note here, Commissioner Handerhan, we will stop accepting questions at 8:25. If there are any remaining questions, email Commissioner Handerhan at 1bo1 at anc.dc.gov. I'm sure he will drop it in the chat, or any of the developers directly, but we will be stopping kind of accepting questions then.
Thank you, Chair Harris. I will make sure to get to the raised hand. I'm going to get a few of the chat questions that came in first. There's a couple, maybe I'll turn back to you, Patrick, just to break it up. There's a question about sharing internal financial projections. I think it's a fair question. I think it's probably best for DemPed. So I think you see it in there, and curious if you're able to answer that. There's also a second part of that question around, NAACP. So it'd be good to understand if you can just say again, that's in both proposals. I put a comment in the chat, but and then kind of a question that's more for the district about the post office, whether or not it'll be relocated during construction.
Regarding financial projections, the financial information is confidential within the proposal right now, so that's not something that we can share or discuss at this time. When it's introduced to council, during that time, during the introduction, there will be both an affordable housing plan with the anticipated breakdown and amount of affordable housing and the AMI levels for each unit, as well as a project. I believe there's a project budget included in that, but I'd have to double check on that.
Great. And then can you talk a little bit about the relationship with NAACP as well as the post office?
The NAACP is very excited to be moving their 50,000 square foot headquarters here. So we look forward to that happening, and they're working with whichever development team will be doing it, and they've entered into their own negotiations with those teams.
Thank you. And then will the post office exist during construction or be relocated, or what's the plan for that?
We anticipate demolition of the building, so I don't believe the post office would exist during that process, because I believe the whole building will be torn down.
Great, thank you. I'm gonna do one more question in the chat and then turn to the hands and then try to clean up any remaining ones. So thanks everyone for bearing with me. We got a question about the EV chargers for the parking. It was asked twice. If either of the teams will have EV chargers as part of the parking, and who will pay for maintenance. And those are for the development teams.
And I missed the Commissioner Hanahan. I missed the second part of that question. Will there be EV parking and?
The question asked about who will maintain that setup.
Got it. For the legacy team, yes, we do anticipate EV parking at the site. I know it's recently become a requirement of the city. You know, there's legislation and other tools out there that have been put out there to help sort of ensure that that infrastructure grows. Our CEO at Dante's Partners, it's also something that's very important to him as well. So I can tell the person that sent that comment, they've got a champion for that particular piece. And the parking will be owned and maintained by the development team.
Yes, our team will also have EV parking. We will retain a private company who will install and provide ongoing maintenance and management of the EV.
So Commissioner Henderhan?
Yep.
Sorry, I just looked at the project budget is not included with the introduction. That's proprietary information.
Thank you. Commissioner Jones, could you elevate Frank Shawman to ask a question, please?
Yes, can you hear me?
Can hear you great.
Yes, and Frank, if you can limit your question to 2 minutes, please.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to say that the 20 years ago, the Duke Plan was essentially established and promoted by the Office of Planning to respect and grow and calibrate and make U Street heritage important piece of U Street. And I think both of these plans show that there's an attempt to contribute to that history. Currently, there's 8,000 residents down the U Street corridor that call themselves, that call home U Street corridor. And unfortunately, we have the bad moniker of having 60% of the robberies down U Street. Of Ward 1, excuse me. 60% of the robberies have recently been attached to U Street of Ward 1. I don't like to have that stat. It's too great of a place. Too many people call it home. And I want to know if you folks, the two developers, will support a bid, and if so, a business improvement district in your proposal somehow, some way, and how, and if you might commit to something this evening regarding support of a business improvement district. Thank you.
I would just like to note something very quickly here, because this is certainly revisiting something that we discussed at the prior process around the bid. So this is something that I think both development teams, and I am curious to hear their response, that they were interested and they could lead on this. Now that may have changed, so I will let them respond, but it is also up to the businesses in the corridor to participate. So someone can lead, but it's not up to them to take full reins of it. It is up to kind of the overall businesses in the area. So if someone wants to respond first to that.
Thank you, Commissioner Harris. Yes, we previously had committed to being part of the bid planning. We actually met with different businesses and different leaders who were active in creating the bid, and we got a bit of different opinions in terms of how a bid should be created and structured. But we are definitely open to being integrally involved in creating the bid and participating in the bid. But as Commissioner Harris said, it really is contingent on the businesses along the 14th and U Street corridor wanting to be involved in the bid, but we definitely want to be active in that process.
And the legacy team is more than happy to support if the businesses decide that they want to organize and establish a bid. We've worked in other communities where there have been budding or active business improvement districts, and have certainly supported those. So this would be no different for us.
Thank you. Thank you. We are in the lightning round of questions. I'm going to try to cruise through the last 4 and wrap up in the next 2 minutes. For both development teams, will the capital bike share station be retained? And that's a question for both construction and afterwards.
I think as part of our construction plan, we need to look at the sequencing to understand how that particular area will be impacted. Our goal is to impact it as minimally as possible, but that's still to be determined. And then we don't control the capital bike share program to the extent that they want to return. We're more than happy to ensure that we can accommodate them. And I think that goes to an earlier question that we got earlier about how we reduce car rides, et cetera. Here, that's a great way to do that by having capital bike share remain at the site.
Yeah. Likewise, we would have to determine how we can have the capital bike share remain during construction. Logistically, it will be a bit challenging, and we would be happy if they would continue to have the capital bike share at the location. Excuse me.
Great. Patrick, can you answer this next question? Why is the project no longer eligible for the low-income housing tax credit?
It's not that it's no longer eligible, it's that the 4% LIHTC and the mortgage revenue bond program that they go with used to be considered a by right, meaning you could apply for it and you would just get it. And it is now a competitive process. You have to apply for it, and there are limits. There are limits to the amount of bond now. So the previously guaranteed public source of subsidy is no longer guaranteed.
Thank you, sir. Next question is for Legacy. Is the senior housing going to be subsidized or public?
Based on the response that Patrick just provided, that's to be determined at this stage.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Great. We're going to end on parking, which is basically where we started. This was addressed, but I do think because there's been a lot of questions on parking, it's just a nice thing to just remind the audience. For both teams, will there be any publicly accessible parking in your plans? This is for Legacy, but I think if both can just reply, that'd be great.
Sure. The garage, we do anticipate being open to the public. I think in terms of determining what's available, we first have to make sure that we're following whatever zoning requirements we have at the site in terms of parking allocations, but would certainly would want to be in a position to open it up to the public.
Yes, the CMC Ventures team will have parking that is accessible to the public.
Great. I want to thank both teams for all their time tonight. I want to thank the community and the commissioners for excellent questions. Thanks, Chair Harris, for keeping us organized. So what's next? I just dropped my email in the chat if people have additional questions. I really encourage folks to look at the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development on their website. Their web portal is quite good. Both the presentations from last week and I presume the presentations from tonight can be posted there. And there's going to be a Community Economic Development Committee meeting 2 weeks from tonight, in which that group will start to craft and propose a resolution for this group to vote on a month from tonight. Part of that for the development teams is going to be a short questionnaire. I know we did this last time too, and we'll try to spare you as many questions as last time, but we want to make sure we can produce a apples to apples comparison of the two projects around the major areas, whether it be housing or the adherence to the Duke plan. So thank you in advance for being responsive to those questions. You already covered a lot tonight, which we really appreciate. I did see one commissioner question I want to honor, but okay. Thanks, Mr. Kenzik. So again, thank you, everyone. I know this was a long presentation, but I think it was really productive and appreciate everyone's time.
And Commissioner Hanrahan, just so you know, the presentation, only a district material goes up on the website, but I believe those presentations are the same as they were presented at the disposition hearing. So they're the same presentations.
Great. Thank you for that clarification.
Are we able to, I mean, is there anything limiting us from sharing these presentations on ANC 1B's website?
No, what's presented at the ANC can be shared by the ANC.
Great. So we will have the presentations up on the website for the community to view.
And Patrick, we just got a question about the video recording from last week. I know you were working on that.
It's still in its raw form, and I'm still trying to get clarity on what's going on with it.
That was my question as well, Commissioner Hanrahan. I didn't see a video yet from that meeting.
Great, thank you. And I see the trash question. We'll add that to the questionnaire so we get to take care of that later. Thank you, everyone, again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Commissioner Hanrahan, for tackling this once again. I think we're a little bit better prepared this time, or at least more informed, kind of. Can you remind everyone just one more time when the next Economic Development Committee meeting is?
Thursday, February 16th at 6:30. It's posted on our website. All are welcome.
Great. And then other meetings from there will also be posted on the website? Yeah,
we will please go to the website for information on how to get involved and other opportunities to hear from the development teams and or advise the process.
Yes. Thank you. Transportation, Commissioner Lakatos.
Yes, one moment. So the only item on the agenda for the Transportation Committee is Notice of Intent 23-02-TLA, which I'll put up on the screen in a moment, which is the installation of a commercial loading zone on the 900 block of W Street. So I saw Commissioner Sycamore's letter, and I definitely wanted to speak on this, but I want to introduce the NOI and sort of introduce the process that the Transportation Committee took to come to the recommendation that it did. So give me 1 second, let me share it on the screen. Alrighty. Can you see my screen? Can you see the NOI?
No.
Okay.
Maybe exit sharing and try one more time.
All right. If not, I believe Commissioner Jones, I might call on your back up here. Okay. Here we go. Try again. All right. Still no luck?
No.
All right. Commissioner Jones, would you mind taking a stab at it?
Yes, please give me just a moment.
Yeah. So while Commissioner Jones is getting that up, I'm gonna give an introduction to this. The resolution before you has to do sort of was drafted in support of the NOI. It's based on the Transportation Committee's unanimous recommendation for support that DDOT rezone specifically 3 spots on the 900 block of W Street into a commercial loading zone, while also rezoning 4 spots on the southern side to RPB only spots. Those spots are currently 2-hour spots. Spots on the north side are RPB only. The idea being in the recommendation to compensate for the loss of RPB designated parking. So that's specifically what the resolution addresses. But in terms of the broader NOI, there's a huge challenge for deliveries, at this intersection in the 900 block of Florida Avenue. There's around 700 units of housing, close to 1,000 residents in condos and apartment buildings. Delivery drivers often are going to park in the middle of Florida Avenue in the painted median. Sometimes they'll park in the lane of traffic. They'll park in the bus stop or the bike lane. And sort of the idea behind this that, DDOT raised was to help address it by installing a commercial loading zone. So that would allow, these drivers are, construction workers or people who are driving stuff off, UPS drivers, FedEx deliveries, Amazon, some of the sort. This is not to handle deliveries to Whole Foods. Whole Foods has a specific loading dock for their needs as a tenant at 965 Florida Avenue. Yes, thank you, Commissioner. Jones, would you be able to scroll down to the page with the visual aid? Yes, thank you, so people can see it. So here, the place where it says there's a yellow thing that says new CLZ, that's exactly the area that the proposal. So there's a pretty big safety need, there's a delivery need. I know there's a lot of issues with curbside management across the district. This isn't an issue unique to this one spot, 1B. And I want to kind of emphasize that I think there's some genuine issues about parking that I completely share and empathize with, and we discussed at the Transportation Committee as we led into introducing our recommendation, which is that there's a lack of sufficient enforcement by DPW of RPP only parking, of 2-hour parking, of all these different things. And I completely agree, and that's one of the committee's main goals, which is something we discussed in the second half of our meeting, separate from this resolution. I'm not ignoring those needs. This was designed to address the needs of these 1,000 or so residents who have difficulty getting deliveries, while also, trying to alleviate some of the loss of RPP designated parking, which again, to clarify, the southern side is 2-hour zone parking now. It would become, under the request, RPP only. The northern side, which is 3 RPP only spots, would turn into a commercial loading zone. Residents would still be able to park there after 6:30 p.m., which I believe the current arrangement wouldn't necessarily allow. Commissioner Sycamore, I want to recognize you because I saw your letter. I want to give you the opportunity to speak. Chair Harris, I think you would have to do that, but I would ask that you recognize Commissioner Sycamore, unless you don't want to speak, but I'm guessing you do.
Just for a quick note, apologies. I think Commissioner Sycamore absolutely want you to voice kind of the concerns that you've heard from a neighbor. But Commissioner Jones, would it actually be possible for you to zoom in on the visual aid? It is a little difficult to see. If not, that is okay. Okay. So the yellow part, just for clarification, that is the loading zone designation.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jones, can you go ahead and take this off the screen, and then Commissioner Sycamore, you can go ahead.
Hello, thank you so much. I do have a letter here. Commissioner Jones, would you mind pulling that up? If you can't, I can do it on my screen.
Sorry, I'm not prepared to do that. If you wouldn't
Not
mind
a problem.
first, and I'm happy to be your
Yep.
backup.
Yep. Problem. Let's see. First time doing this, so bear with me. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. So this is a letter that I have sent to all of you earlier this morning. This was authored by a constituent right on W Street here. Right here, it lays out all of the reasons for why they as a conglomerate of residents have decided to go against this. It talks about street cleaning, it talks about Whole Foods not providing adequate enough signage, which Commissioner Lakatos has brought to my attention, and that would be something I'd definitely love to work with Whole Foods on. There's always constantly, from what I'm being told, non-residents with Maryland and Virginia plates parking here. You could probably have someone from parking enforcement stand here, and we could have everyone's budgets and all of DDOT be covered just from all of that illegal parking. So I don't think that having these types of loading zones here will actually be, it will be of any use because people will just be parking there anyway. I have talked to the business, which is a hair salon. It's called Revive Hair Salon. They don't want it. They have additional parking. So that's right here. One thing that they really wanted me to emphasize is there's already not enough street parking for existing single-family homes on this block, which most of this block is single-family homes. If you look towards the back of W Street, there's absolutely no way anyone can actually get into their parking spaces there because of the narrow alleyway. So if you look down right here, excuse me. The reasons why these are flawed, the commercial businesses in the area that are listed right below are right there, and there is public parking available for all these spaces. More specifically, if we're talking about Whole Foods. And when we're talking about delivery parking, there is a loading zone. If you can look right, so let's see, right here on the W Street extension, there are loading zones already right here. The proposed loading zone that you're talking about is right here. I believe that's right there. Yep. So it's right here. So it's not that far of a stretch for people to just come over here and start parking in these loading zones. These are some of the big things that are happening right now that are going on. And I think we probably have the author of this letter who can speak far more eloquently on this topic than I can. If Meredith is on the line, I would love for her to raise her hand so she can also speak on this a little bit more.
We may wait for that for a little bit unless there are questions.
Not a problem. Yeah, in that case.
Are you finished or?
Well, in that case, just another really quick note that this letter has been sent around, as you can see down here. It has been sent around to every single resident on this block. Every single house and every single resident has signed this letter, which is also a photo that I've sent to everybody here. So that's a total of, I believe, 14 houses with 16 signatures on. And there should be more on there on the way coming soon when this letter gets sent over to DDOT, the mayor's office, and the council member's office. And I think that's pretty much it. And if you wanted to go into more details, you can read it more right here.
Thank you. Can you go ahead and take that off the screen?
Oh, and I'm sorry, one more quick comment. So my main goal for this is for this whole proposal that the Transportation Committee is proposing is to completely retract that and to go and deny, or not deny, but not support the NOI from DDOT in its entirety.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Please go ahead and take this off the screen so then we can see
Yeah, trying. Where do I do that? Oh, do you have it?
I did you a favor, Commissioner.
Oh, thank you.
But I do have a couple of questions for you, Commissioner Sycamore. So were you able to attend the Transportation Committee meeting or any of the meetings to convey kind of this opposition from the neighbors?
I was not. So I have talked to Commissioner Lakatos. He and I really didn't have, our schedules really didn't match up all that well, so I was unable to attend that and voice my concern. But I do believe, I think we had a brief conversation before the transportation meeting, and we did talk briefly about possibly moving it over to the south side. And then after talking to residents, both his constituents and my constituents, because we share this block, which, by the way, all of them on Mr. Commissioner Lakatos' side also signed this letter.
Did any of those neighbors, do you know if they were able to attend the Transportation Committee?
I do not know.
Okay. Yes, that is primarily where we kind of conduct this business. And, you know, I appreciate your work on the letter and talking with residents, but I think it's important that you as the commissioner and community members know that they can talk about these projects and things that come up during the committee. So it doesn't feel like this is just popping up out of nowhere. So I would encourage you to do that in the future. I think one clarifying question, because I'm not noticing this, I think if I had seen this letter kind of as it stands from you, Commissioner Sycamore, I would see that it's potentially removing a lot of parking spaces, which I understand the need, but I just want to clarify, how many spaces is this removing? If it's even removing any, Commissioner Lakatos?
It's removing 3 RPP zone spots.
And then those are potentially getting replaced or opened up on the south side?
the resolution that the Transportation Committee drafted specifically requested DDOT rezone 4 spots on the south side to RPP only from 2 hour in order to compensate for the loss of RPP only parking.
Oh, so that would bring in 1 additional spot. So I think it would be interesting for you to advocate, Commissioner Sycamore, and for you, Commissioner Lakatos, to kind of reframe it that, you know, 1, this potentially mitigates any traffic issues while also adding to the RPP. And I think there should be an addition that maybe there is a letter to DPW about the enforcement issues that are occurring here, regardless if there is a loading zone or not, there's still enforcement issues. So I think that's something that can be addressed in the same letter or in a future letter for that. But are there any other commissioner questions? Commissioner Kinsick.
I'm hoping that with the information that I just read with Commissioner Sycamore and also read this morning and looked at the petition, I would hope that we would move not to vote on this and that we give the community and Sycamore and Mr. Lakatos another go around just because this is our second meeting of the new year. Some people are unaware of it. I know we have this on our 1B website, but again, you know, I just think it would be fair to let his voice stand and maybe work on something. It sounds good on paper. It's not affecting 1B05 directly, but I still think as a sitting commissioner, it's only fair that we would hold off on a vote on this right now. Thank you.
I think that is a good point, Commissioner Kinsick, although I will have to, you know, ask Commissioner Lakatos if there is a timeline and time frame for this that we need to adhere to. We'll also say that we have had the Transportation Committee meetings set, and I do know that Commissioner Lakatos has been very open on his communication channels to hear this. So if the motion can be, and we don't even have a motion in front of us, but if this can be tabled to next month, I think that could be valuable with the kind of almost willingness from Commissioner Sycamore to ensure that these neighbors are brought to the Transportation Committee, that it doesn't come in at the 11th hour on March 2nd. So I just would encourage that. But Commissioner Lakatos, if you want to speak any more on that.
Yeah, I'll just, oh, sorry, Commissioner Handerhan. But I would just add some context before I have some other thoughts in general. But the deadline for comment on the NOI is February 22nd. So if the ANC were to provide official comment, it would have to be at this meeting. Commissioner Handerhan, or I don't know, Chair Harris, if you have to recognize, I know what the process is.
Commissioner Handerhan, go ahead.
I was going to express my support to delay this and see if there was another way to get at. I just, if we're going to lose the chance to have great weight, you know, I think we need to resolve it tonight, and that's unfortunate. It feels like maybe there might be another go around per Commissioner Kinsick's suggestion. Feels like it could potentially lead to a better solution. And I do want to recognize there are a lot of comments in the chat, so maybe if we can find a way to incorporate those, whether the motion's up or not.
I'm sorry.
I'm seeing them, and I will. So for one comment I see, we do email residents. We have a newsletter. It is advertised on our website. There was a period where our newsletter, and this was last term, where I think it fell to the wayside, but I know that Commissioner Jones has taken the reins of this. So that is that's not exactly accurate. So I will push that aside. I understand the need for parking. I have a car myself, but we pay garage parking, and I think there's also a lot of data and things out there that talk about, one, it's very costly for the city to maintain on-street parking. But we do not need to get into that because the alternative, what it sounds like, if DDOT takes our great weight into consideration, is that it would be adding one additional RPP spot. Yes, residents can speak. We're just getting through this Q&A. So Commissioner Lakatos, if you want to say anything, and then we will, Commissioner Jones, if you can promote Matthew Bosch to speak, and then we will go from there.
I think, well, we can, the DDOT process, I think, is pretty fixed. So we might lose our chance to, I don't know of an instance where you can just, our choice would be to be, oh, can you push it 30 days? I don't think that's really how it works. The comments I can add, and I like to reemphasize again that I understand the parking concerns, which is why I formatted the resolution and in the way that I did, and that's what the Transportation Committee did, because we understand the concerns of the fact that there's limited enforcement, that there are challenges with finding RPP spots, and that sometimes it's hard to find a spot in front of your house or around the corner. The point of this resolution isn't to provide commercial loading for the Whole Foods. They have a loading dock. This isn't to provide places for people to park for Whole Foods. They have a parking lot, not the salon. It's because there's 1,000 people who live in the adjoining apartment buildings who need to get deliveries, and the delivery drivers have to park in the middle of the street and blocking traffic and blocking different places. I'm emphasizing this because I'm a resident. I live across the street from where this loading zone would be, and I walk by this place every single day. If people would prefer to table this, and I would be okay with that as an alternative. I would really strongly, recommend consider the realities. We live in a world where we have to get a lot of deliveries, and we're trying to build like the best curbside management we can, but sometimes it's about making trade-offs, and this might be one of them. I think we've had a long-standing discussion in the Transportation Committee about the need for more commercial loading zones throughout 1B, especially in targeted areas where there's issues with illegal parking and double parking by delivery vehicles. And this was one of the actual areas that was raised by the Transportation Committee in the last ANC term. That's really and I would also add one specific point. Commissioner Sigurd to put a lot of effort into the letter and raise some specific areas about alternatives. The two areas, specifically the one in the rear by the Whole Foods parking lot, is owned by Howard. It is going to be redeveloped in the part of their next redevelopment, which is in ANC 1E. The Woonerf between 901W and the Weil residential building, which crosses, is privately owned by JVG Smith. And more broadly, as the commissioner represents these buildings, I've been working with the property managers to try and educate FedEx, UPS, Amazon, USPS on where they can and cannot park, trying to push them into specific spaces. That's something I would continue if the loading zone were to be installed. Just trying to push them there, not to park in someone's RPP spot, not to park in the middle of the street, not to park in the bike lane, not to park in the bus. But I'll reserve my comments for now. Commissioner Sycamore, Chair Harris.
Go ahead, Commissioner Sycamore.
Again, there are loading zones that are right between those two buildings, so I don't see why we can't continue to use that and get that enforcement in there. If we are going to really talk about street parking, we do have a couple other alternatives around the corner. There's a huge space right on where Florida and Sherman split. It's right next to the Chesapeake restaurant bodega thing and the houses. There's a huge swath of non-parking right there that could also be a good alternative that I forgot to put into this letter, but just as another thing to go on tonight. This is why I'm with it, but this has to be done tonight. There's no other option. We have to get this done tonight. So this is why I'm asking for the full support of the ANC to not support this resolution, either by the Transportation Committee or from the NOI, from DDOT.
So I think that is a valid suggestion, and I wonder if that is something that either the Transportation Committee has explored or not. But if that is the case, that it can be explored for the potential loading zone, maybe that is in the letter. I am just trying to find a compromise because I want the ANC to be given great weight. And since the Transportation Committee did talk about this at length and voted on this, I think in favor of unanimously. I think it's important that we do vote on it tonight. So I think Commissioner Lakatos, is there the potential to add in another option for a loading zone on where Commissioner Sycamore was describing?
I would be comfortable if you want to add a request for DDOT to explore alternatives. I'll add as a practical aside that the specific NOI references the 900 block of Florida Avenue, and it talks about these buildings, which is where Florida Avenue and W Street intersect, which is there are condominium buildings on one side and there's apartments and condominiums on the other side. The Chesapeake, we don't have the map up. The Chesapeake store is a lot farther up, and I would just guess it would be impractical for delivery drivers to park there. Yeah, because UPS drivers will you think they're going to run down the whole street? I'm gonna be real with you. They're going to park in front. They're going to park in the bike lanes. What they're going to do instead? I think that it would be, at this point, I am inclined just to motion that the ANC take no action. I don't think that we're probably going to get to a point where we're in, full support or full opposition. At least that's my position, but that's sort of the way I'm leaning at this point, because I feel like it's just because the NOI challenges in the timeline.
Well, I think it's up to the other commissioners. I will, even though I will not be voting, I will convey my support for this. I think it's important to really look at plans, and I understand the concern about parking. But if there's a lot of advocacy that the ANC can do with DDOT to ensure that the RPP spaces are opened. But we do have a community comment. Commissioner Jones, if you can promote that person to be able to speak. And I am going to limit your response to 2 minutes, if that's possible, so we can get this done.
Hi, can you hear me? This is Meredith Woody, Matthew Bosch's wife. We live at 923 W Street. I'm the one that authored the letter that all of the people on our block signed. I believe this is an absolutely ridiculous proposal. And Chairman Harris, in all due respect, we live in single family houses without parking blocks behind our house. There's nowhere for us to park our cars. We do not get any discount for living in massive condo buildings. It is not our fault as single family home residents that there are massive condo blocks in our community. These condo blocks are legally required to have parking spots for their residents. Why are there not required loading and unloading zones for them? It is, as you know, this is a very difficult place to park. I have a Fiat 500. I know you're obviously anti-car based on your rhetoric so far. I have a Fiat 500. It's basically a pistachio of a car. I have a hard time parking here on a nightly basis. There are a lot of us who have jobs that are not metro accessible, as there are a lot of people that come into our neighborhood that aren't metro accessible. There's an entire section on 10th Street that is unmarked that Howard University employees park all the time. I have literally gone up and down this block because I do work from home. My husband does not. And I count the number of cars that are illegally parked. I have seen cars parked here all weekend without getting ticketed. I have seen 7 cars on one side of the block. I think there's maybe 10 spots, right? They don't get ticketed. So you're saying like adding 4 spots of residents only spots is going to fix the problem. No, it is not. You don't live here. You don't know. We see it every day and we struggle with this. We're just trying to get by. We've got families, we have children, we have dogs, we have places to go and places to be, and we need to be able to park when we come home at nighttime, because, even on Sunday days after church, there are people here filling up all of our parking spots because they're getting drunk at brunch. And then they're getting drunk and messing up our cars. They're breaking into our cars. This is ridiculous. There are many other options for this. We should not have to pay because you have allowed gigantic condo buildings to pop up all over our neighborhoods without holding them accountable for the parking and the deliveries of their residents. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. And just as a point of clarification, and Commissioner Jones, if you can go ahead and promote the community member back to the attendees, but I am a car owner. I pay premium parking, and I'm not saying that should exist for everyone. I pay $250 a month. So I understand we pay that because we are scared of, potentially having to pay for our windows being broken in. I'm very well of the concerns. I don't live that far away. I live very nearby, so I understand that. But I also understand the concerns of cyclists who use bike lanes, who cannot use the lane because of the delivery trucks that are blocking. I understand the need that residents want, that are concerned about climate change, although I'm sure that this is not something that you want to hear. But that is a concern until we start prioritizing other forms of transportation. Now, in regards to the condo buildings, that is something that the ANC can address in the loading zones and whatnot, but that is a direct effect from people higher up than us. We have no legislative power. We are volunteers here. So I do appreciate your community comment here. And this is a difficult decision for, I think, all of us, even though it shouldn't be. But I think it's a bit unfair, some of your responses to us here on the commission. And I'm going to end it there. If there are community questions.
No, Miss Commission Chairperson Harris, you have not given sufficient amount.
No, we have given.
You've been talking down to my residents. That is not fair.
Commissioner Sycamore, I have not. I will open it up once more for the other person, but then we will end it there, and I will leave it up to you or Commissioner Lakatos to raise the motion for this. But this is the job of the ANC to add in great weight, and it's not just for everyone that is right nearby, it is for the broader community as well. Commissioner Jones.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I would like to speak as well, since I have not yet spoken on this topic, but I would like to speak after the other community member with their hand up. Is that all right?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to respond to the comment regarding the delivery drivers and the distance they would have to travel to the building, which is maybe an extra block from the building. In addition to what Jamie said, they do have a loading area available as well. We definitely don't have anywhere to park, and it's completely unfair to take away those parking spaces from us. As Meredith said, we struggle every day just to park our cars, and you are taking sides with a delivery driver versus property owners who are also District of Columbia taxpayers. So I don't think that they should be the concern. We should be the concern. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Regardless of how we vote on either of these two proposals, I will be proposing a motion afterward that we authorize Commissioner Lakatos to write a letter to DPW requesting more enforcement in this area of parking. One weakness that I know that is a complaint that I totally get and sympathize with. No one should be allowed to illegally store their property on our public land indefinitely, as we've seen happening. So to that end, to my awareness, DPW does not actually enforce any parking violations on Sundays, which is leading to some of the issues that the neighbors have noted as well. We should also request that that they enforce the law every day of the week. So to that end, again, regardless of how we end up voting on the NOI, I will be afterward proposing a motion authorizing Commissioner Lakatos to, on our behalf, write a letter asking for more enforcement. That's an issue regardless of whether this action is taken or not, that we've clearly brought up right now, and that's something we can do regardless of the path we choose.
Okay. Commissioner Lakatos, would you like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion, an amended motion to what I remember previously. And one of the community members made a very valid point about the parking zoning on 10th Street, which is directly adjacent to this street. And I would make a motion that we support the NOI with the specific request to rezone the 4 spots below, so on the south side of W Street, in order to compensate for the loss, as well as to rezone 10th Street entirely for RPP, only for Zone 1.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Commissioner Sycamore?
Yeah, no. I think, again, even if we have a loading zone there, people are going to be illegally parking there. We're going to still end up with the same problems that we are facing now. Bike lanes are going to be blocked. Places are going to be all put up in the middle of the street. And we're going to be left, in my constituency, just with less. And I think Miss Riley brought up a great point, that we are tax-paying residents. They are tax-paying residents. And that we're giving these priorities to delivery trucks when they have places that they can already go is unfair. And I absolutely ask every single one of you to vote this down.
I hear that. However, I think your ultimate issue there is with enforcement, not with the loading zone. It seems like whether
No, it's not. Please do not characterize it that way. That is not what I said.
Please do not interrupt me. I did not interrupt you. Regardless, there seems to be an enforcement issue, and that is something that can be addressed in a letter. However, I am a taxpayer. My constituents are also taxpayers. I have constituents who are cyclists who have to then take safety into their own hands and navigate around in a bike lane. I also have constituents who have street parking, who also, myself, including my constituents, who have to figure out how to navigate around delivery trucks when there aren't a loading zone. So we all have tax-paying constituents here, and it is not a on or off type of thing where only your constituents will be affected by what I see on the map. It seems you've also shared that line with Commissioner Lakatos. So I think, we need to consider that, and the commissioners need to consider that when they are voting, and that ultimately we do need to look at the numbers here, that it's 3 spots directly affected with the potential of an addition of another spot on the south side, with another addition with requesting 10th Street to become RPP. So, and again, I know that you're shaking your head. However, if you are worried about the spots being open, that is an enforcement issue, not a loading zone issue.
Madam Chair, can I, yeah, thank you. I understand, I want to say this, and again, I understand the concerns. And I think partly this is a lack of parking. I understand there's challenges. There's a limited amount of parking space on the street. It is hard to find a spot. I think that this is a part of a beginning of a compromise to deal with the fact that there are a lot of people. There are, a certain number of residents live in this block in single-family homes. There's also hundreds and hundreds of residents who live in these buildings, who also pay taxes and who also need to get deliveries. I think that there's part of this is, how do I say it exactly? This isn't for one building. This isn't for the Whole Foods. The idea, and I'm speaking from what DDOT said, it's for the 900 block of Florida Avenue, which is several buildings, is to handle deliveries with those. And I think this is a solution that works towards that partly. And I would second, and I appreciate Commissioner Jones bringing that up. That's a huge priority of the Transportation Committee and myself, is trying to get increased DPW enforcement. It's a challenge for all of us who have to park on the street. It's a challenge for people who have to get deliveries. It's a challenge for everything. I get that. I just think it's a necessary thing. The deliveries aren't going to go away, and we have to find a way to fit all of this. And I think this is kind of just the simplest way to put it. And that's why I added 10th Street as well, because I think that's a valid point. There's some commercially unzoned parking segments without 1B which we've been trying to get rezoned into RPP parking. I think it's a very fair place to put it. I would ask that you support the motion. And yeah, I'll withdraw myself.
Commissioner Sycamore, let's kind of end the discussion after you.
All right, well, I would support the residential parking on 10th Street. That's absolutely necessary. But again, I still am in complete defiance of this entire process. I've been elected to represent the people of my constituency, as have all of you. And I'm telling you exactly what we need. And I'm also representing now Commissioner Lakatos's people as well on the opposite side of the street, who have also signed this. So this is a by S&D issue. And the fact that all of these buildings have loading zones already and they're not being utilized by these delivery is a huge concern for me. So I think it's not about enforcement. So I do not appreciate being characterized that way. Please do not put words in my mouth. So I'm asking for the full denial of this motion.
You are not being characterized that way. It was a assumption, and it was a rational one at that. I will say, when all commissioners take the oath of office, it's for the entirety of the District of Columbia and the best interest of the entirety of the District of Columbia, not just our zones. So all those in favor? All those opposed? Abstentions?
Can we do a roll call on that, please?
Okay. All those in favor? Well, no, sorry. Commissioner Handerhan.
Abstain.
Commissioner Houlihan.
Vote in favor.
Commissioner Sycamore.
No.
Commissioner Lakatos.
Yes.
Commissioner Kensick.
No.
Commissioner Fields.
Abstain.
Commissioner Harris, yes. Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
Motion does not pass. There was a tie. All right. I think there are several options here. So one, Commissioner Sycamore, which you've already done, you can send your letter to DDOT on this NOI. Commissioner Lakatos, you can, as representing as yourself, which you did. Commissioner Lakatos, you can do the same thing as yourself. The Transportation Committee can write their own letters. Any of the commissioners here who are in favor of it can also write your own letters. You cannot represent the commission as this. But but I would encourage moving forward for these discussions to happen at the Transportation Committee beforehand. We can absolutely have it here, but I think it's productive there where we have community members who deal with this day in and day out, who talk about this, who may be experts. So Commissioner Sycamore, if you can please, when Commissioner Lakatos does reach out, or any other commissioners, same thing, this goes for everyone, please respond, please attend these committee meetings, encourage your residents who are in favor or opposed to certain projects or NOIs to also attend, to voice, and to talk about this. It is open during commission meetings. We do try to reserve these very specific matters there, so then the discussion is focused on that topic. Commissioner Jones.
Sorry, Chair Harris, point of order. I believe that Commissioner Sycamore's motion is still on the table. Is that correct?
No, because he did not raise the motion. So your point of order is out of order because he did not raise his motion and there was no second. Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Chair Harris. I'd like to make a motion. I move that the commission as a whole authorize Commissioner Lakatos to write a letter to DPW speaking on our behalf, asking for enhanced enforcement of parking violations in the 900 block of W Street and in any of the surrounding blocks as Commissioner Lakatos sees fit. This letter does not authorize him to speak on for or against the NOI in question.
I would second that.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Give me 1 second because I do not think I added the votes correctly on that motion before. So we had 3, Commissioner Jones, if you happen to write this down, but probably not. And sorry, I do see your hand, Commissioner Kinsick. So we had 1, 4 in favor. We had 2 abstentions. Sorry, I know I'm going out of it. And then we had 3 opposed.
No, the vote was 4 to 2 to 2.
Oh, then I completely read that wrong. I apologize. My notes are filled up from a previous discussion. That motion carried. So I was wrong. And if anyone has Robert's rules in front of them, but the motion carried before.
I'm going to double check Robert's rules right now to make sure that we're in order, just to be safe, Chair Harris.
That is probably wise because this is one of the first times where we've encountered a vote this close. So let's go ahead and move forward since this has been an extended meeting. But Commissioner Kinsick, did you have a question?
No, Chair, you discussed it. We're good.
Thank you all for bearing with me on that. That is something that was my mistake. Okay. Commissioner Handerhan, do you want to speak on some good news about our admin for now?
Yes, this is definitely good news, and want to thank the commissioners for their patience on this. We've had a vacant administrative consultant position for over a year. It's been posted on our website. We've done advertising. We did a recent push around the new commission. We did get multiple applications and met with everyone who applied. and really pleased tonight to share that we have made a selection that the money to authorize this position was voted on last meeting. So this is kind of like the implementation of that vote. But the commissioners will have the resume of the candidate, the successful candidate, in their inbox, and he is also on the line, who's been very patient, but this will be his job soon. So Commissioner Jones, if you wouldn't mind elevating Cedric Dagabama, really would love to have him just say a few words. He only accepted the position today and is joining us tonight. The administrative consultant position is really someone who's going to be able to help us staff the day-to-day work of this committee, of committees and the full commission. They're kind of a member of the team and someone that we're all going to work with a lot. I was really impressed with Cedric's background in Ward 1 going back a couple decades. You know, he's raising his family here. He's very knowledgeable of the issues we're facing. I think he's gonna be a great addition to the team. So Cedric, thank you for joining us. Would love for you to introduce yourself.
Sure, Commissioner Anderson, thank you so much. I'll be quick. Chairperson Harris, commissioners, community members, I'm very excited to be here tonight. Super grateful. Thank you for the opportunity, really for the vote of confidence. Yeah, I appreciate this opportunity. Going on 13 years of living in the district and of somewhat being active in the community, particularly on Lower George Avenue with the Lower George Avenue Community Development Task Force, with the Business Alliance, and advising the Main Street more recently. But I'm looking forward to working with each of you. And yeah, it's an honor to be assisting the commission in this capacity. So thank you all.
Thank you. We also have an offer out for a paid intern for our community engagement that we're still kind of finalizing that. But if anyone else is interested in working with the committee, you can shoot me a note. There's still another paid internship opportunity posted on the 1B website. Cedric will probably be the one that you hear from if you reach out. So I just want to welcome him to the team and thank everyone. Chair Harris, is there anything you need us to do to kind of move this administratively, or are we good?
No, we are good. We already voted on this in our January meeting and even prior meetings to it. So really excited to have you aboard, Cedric. It is you are bringing much needed help to the commission, and I'm sure other community members, you know, you will hear from Cedric, you will see Cedric around. So excited to have you, and I'm sure we will be talking more in the coming days, if not tomorrow. But there's nothing further. And then Commissioner Handerhan, if you want to give any update on kind of the bylaws, code of conduct, and SOPs that I know you've been working on.
Yes, thank you. So in my role as vice chair, offered to take a kind of pass through our bylaws, and our bylaws are kind of the foundational document that dictates how we conduct ourselves. It's not really a step-by-step. The code of conduct supports the bylaws. It's just you know, how we do the what, and then the SOPs is like the what. So that's really, you know, how to run commission meetings, how to run committee meetings. And I think this group needs to put our stamp on all three of them. So I did ask the commissioners for feedback on the current bylaws, which are posted on our website. I did hear from one commissioner and have that feedback in the document. I would like to kind of announce for the community and for the commissioners that we'll be voting in March on those changes. And I'll send around the chat changes that I've gotten. If you have any additional ones, please let me know. And when it comes to same thing with the code of conduct and the SOPs, it's been a long evening, so I don't recommend that we bring up too much here, but I wanted to make sure everyone aware that we will have this vote in March to make those changes to our processes.
Thank you for that. And since it has been a long meeting, I completely missed a committee update, but to not to bring up more conflict, but I will recognize Commissioner Jones to go back to transportation as he found something that I made a mistake on.
Yes, Madam Chair, point of order. Robert's rules defines a majority vote as more than half the votes cast by persons entitled to vote, excluding blanks or abstentions at a regular or properly called meeting. A straightforward interpretation of that suggests that because the vote was 4 votes in favor, 2 votes against, and 2 abstentions, the abstentions are excluded, and that motion should have passed.
I accept your point of order. So the motion passed.
Thank you.
And just to reiterate, Commissioner Sycamore, along with residents, and I'm sure you've already included it, you can convey as speaking as the commissioner to DDOT as well. Okay, so moving on to ABR, Commissioner Houlihan.
Thanks. We met last month and discussed many different licenses that are actually already in the process. So there are very few things to actually have the ANC vote on, but several of them include bars that are in 1B04. So Commissioner Licados, if you'd like to kick us off with a few of your licenses.
Sure. Commissioner Houlihan, do you want to start with the protest from Maidan listed on the agenda there? We can start there, and then I have the 2 settlement agreements. The Pop Fizz bar has been amended because there is a settlement agreement already. So Maidan, I think the addresses are switched here on it, but it's 1346 Florida Avenue. There's significant concerns from the neighbors in regards to peace, order, and quiet. I've been in extensive contact with them, as well as the applicants related to their sister restaurant, which we'll get to the settlement agreement later. But I would support the ABR committee's recommendation that the full ANC protest the petition to unilaterally dismiss their settlement agreement, which is what they're petitioning to do. Do I need to make that in the form of a motion?
Yes, you do. So it's just to clarify, it is we are talking about protesting the petition, right?
Yes.
Okay. I caught the last part. I'm like, we're not dismissing that.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
So yes, please make the, I will convey this. I know you have the next one as well, but commissioners, anytime you have a establishment, so a bar or restaurant, where a protest might be in line or something else we might be voting on, please read the entire motion as it's laid out in the agenda and try to be as specific as possible.
Thank you, Chair Harris. I move that the full ANC protest the petition to unilaterally dismiss the settlement agreement for Maidan, located at 1346 Florida Avenue Northwest.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Next one.
Yes, this would be for Tollway, which is at 1328 Florida Avenue Northwest. This is a motion to approve a settlement agreement between the applicant rather, a group of 5 and the ANC. This settlement agreement negotiation was very extensive. There were some serious issues between the concerns between the neighbors and the applicant regarding noise, regarding specific hours of operation. We've thankfully come to a settlement agreement. The applicants have signed, the group of 5 have signed. So I would like to make a motion that the ANC support the settlement agreement with Tollway DBA Kirby Club LLC at 1328 Florida Avenue Northwest.
Do we have a second? All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes. So that was and then for POP.
Yes. This is for Pop Viz Bar at 2106-2108 Vermont Avenue Northwest. The applicant has signed a settlement agreement, a template settlement agreement with the ANC. So I would move that the full ANC support the settlement agreement with Pop at 2106-2108 Vermont Avenue.
Seconded.
Do we have a second? All those in favor? Motion passes. And I think there are there any other settlement agreements? I know one came in during the meeting that we'll bring up during new business. Were there any that I missed when we talked about the agenda on this section?
There is 1801 that we need to, I believe we need to vote on to dismiss the protest. We're withdrawing that protest. Is that something we need to vote on?
No, we do not, because you are the commissioner, the SMD commissioner, so you had full right to withdraw it. So, and that was already that was withdrawn yesterday per the board's order.
Good. Okay, great. Nope, nothing till new business then.
Okay. Next, Executive Council Member, Commissioner and Community Announcements, Office of the Mayor, Gerard Allen.
Good evening, everyone. Can everybody hear me? Gotcha. I just have one update for everyone. The mayor is having her 2023 budget engagement forum. It's going to be 2 events being held, one being at Jackson Reed. That's going to be Saturday, February 11th at 11 a.m. Oh, no, actually, let me reach place. Jackson Reed, Thursday, February 9th at 6 p.m. That's located 3950 Chesapeake Street, Northwest. I did drop a link in the chat. I think Commissioner put it in there for everybody. If you want to just click the link, you can sign up for it early. The second event will be held at Eastern High School, 1700 East Capitol Street, Northeast. That will be on Saturday, February 11th at 11 a.m. Again, if you need any more information on this, feel free to reach out to the commissioners, which could reach out to me or get my information from the commissioners, and I can give you that information directly. Any questions, I can take those from you guys right now. All right.
Commissioners, are there any questions? I'm not seeing any. And community members, if you have any questions, please drop it in the Q&A. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Allen. All right, Lauren Lipsey from Councilmember Nadeau's office.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm sorry I missed last month's meeting. That was my first week of work, but I'm happy to be here this month, and I'll be seeing all of you in the months to come. It was great to meet some of you the other day as well in person. Wanted to just make everybody aware, and I think this is pertinent to a lot of the discussions that have gone on tonight, is that we have entered the performance oversight hearing season, and encourage constituents to sign up to testify if they have particular concerns or issues, either specific or systemic, that they want to make sure are heard. The Councilmember Nadeau is now the chair of the Public Works and Operations Committee, and some of the agencies that are under that will have hearings are the Office of Human Rights, Department of Public Works, Office of Contracting and Procurement, and the Department of Licensing and Consumer Protection, amongst others. So I will, after I'm done here, put a link in the chat that can be shared with everyone that goes to where you can learn more about the dates and times of those particular hearings that the council member will be overseeing, and also sign up to testify. I will also share the link for the calendar of all of the hearings that will be occurring in the coming weeks. This is a really valuable opportunity for our community members to make their voices heard, and it sounds like that's a desperate need around a lot of issues right now, especially in 1B. Also want to make note, there was mention earlier about the 7th and T Street Task Force, and I think there are good things happening there, and so it's great to have commissioners involved at the really focused level on particular areas of great need and neighborhoods. So I know I've been already on a few community meetings in the past few weeks with several of you commissioners, and it's been great to drill in on some of those most acute pain points in our community. Save the date, everyone, please, for February 27th is Brienne on Your Block. Location yet to be determined, but this is a part of the monthly office hours that the council member holds that any community member can show up to. Of course, we are always accessible, and I will also put my contact information in the chat. I work to support constituents of 1B and 1C, so I'm a great point of contact, but you are also welcome to show up, and any of your constituents are welcome to show up at these regular office hours. So with that in mind, also encourage people to sign up for our newsletter, because that will contain the most current information as a location is chosen and that sort of thing. I think there was also a question and a mention of a bid pertinent to the Reeves Center discussion, and I'd like to direct everybody to the U Street Safety Initiative update that came out in December that kind of outlined the results from, I think, was a very good, relatively in-depth community engagement activity where proposals and building blocks and action steps were determined to help make the U Street area just a very livable, desirable, or continue to keep it as a livable and desirable area that we all want to live in. So I will also share that link and information. That is not a complete process. And I think, again, staying tuned to the newsletter, and I will be here on a regular basis to share updates, but I think there will continue to be good things to come out of that as just preliminary updates at this point, and conclusions. So stay tuned to that. And I think that might be it. So welcome, happy to take any questions from anybody.
Commissioner Kinsick.
Thanks, Chair. Lauren, just wanted to personally thank you and Councilmember Nadeau's office for responding to 1430 Belmont. I've been trying to tackle that since before I even became their new commissioner since September. It's been very difficult, and with one call, Councilmember Nadeau was very quick to return my call, and also you also have helped tremendously. So thank you, and my constituents, thank you. It was a big scare there with the security, and so things are finally moving. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, and I appreciate that. From a personal standpoint, it is my goal to be extremely communicative and to work with you all. That's kind of my approach to the work. And so I do look forward to having more opportunities to solve solve issues that seem like they have simple solutions, but for some reason are nagging and take a while. So we'll get there.
Are there any other questions? Okay, thank you again for joining us, and welcome to our ANC meetings.
Thank you. I'll share the links that I referenced so this can be shared with everybody, okay?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner announcements. Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Chair Harris. So on Saturday, the 4th at 10 a.m., I've got the representatives from the Department of Public Works and the Department of Health going on a rat and trash walk around ANC, or single member district 1B09, which is the one from which I'm elected. The purpose of this neighborhood walk is to go around and look at problem spots for sanitation issues, namely trash and rodents, and any recurring issues there. If you live near the area that I'm elected from, or within that area, I would love for you to join, and I will put the information about that in the chat. But again, that is Saturday, February 4th at 10 a.m. meeting at the corner of 13th and Clifton at Cardozo Education Campus. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other commissioner announcements? Okay, community announcements. I believe we have one from Ms. Karen Gall, if you can allow her to speak.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, I'm Karen Gall. I am the 3rd District CAC Chairwoman, and I would like to make an announcement. We have our upcoming 3D CAC MPD community public safety meeting that's going to be held on February the 23rd at 7 p.m. at 1620 B Street Northwest. Our meeting that we had last month on January the 26th at 7 p.m. was well attended, and we of course have our meetings every month on the last Thursday of every month, in which we discuss the 3rd District MPD crime statistics. We will also discuss the public safety walks, which every SMD within the 3rd District jurisdiction is invited to attend. This month, we'll be doing on February the 21st, we'll be conducting a walk at 1 p.m. In the PSA 302 and 304 area. That's along the 14th Street corridor and all the way to the Adams Morgan area. You're invited to find your PSA by going to www.3dcac.org. What we generally discuss in our meetings, we went through the criminal code revision news. We discussed legislation on the mandatory code minimums. We also did discuss with the council member representatives the U Street and the T Street initiatives and the mayor's nightlife culture updates. We have city council news at our 3D CAC meetings, as well as reports from CSOSA and community safety concerns in each of the PSAs for the 3rd District. We will also make sure that we continuously discuss information about public safety, namely car break-ins, late night disruptions, motor vehicle thefts, and parking enforcement, lighting that's needed in various areas, cameras, and trash issues. We had a special notation about human trafficking during the month of January, because the month of January was Human Trafficking Awareness Month. So we did discuss that. We're always looking to add on to our team for public safety ambassadors and PSA block captains. So if you're interested in being a public safety ambassador, which basically you'll be walking with officials, meeting with officials, attending meetings with DC agencies and officials. And the block captains is basically keeping you aware, being the point of contact on your block about public safety issues. If there's any upcoming 3rd District community outreach questions that you need, feel free to reach out to us at 3dcacdc@gmail.com, or you can go to our website again, www.3dcac.org, and I'll put that information in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, new business.
Sorry, Madam Chair. I see there is another audience member with their hand up.
Oh, apologies. Go ahead and elevate Mr. Patrick Nelson.
Good evening, everyone. I just have a brief comment that I want to make just at the end of the meeting. I didn't particularly want to sit through this whole thing, but I hung on. I actually attended 2 days ago a groundbreaking ceremony at Howard University for a parcel that I have been trying very, very hard to get them to move forward on. It's the minor building, which is going to be now converted into an educational facility for both the education teaching section and the school that deals with, I'm trying to think of the academic school for the youngsters that's also on campus. They're consolidating that. And I was proud to hear come from the president, who made a speech that he specifically called out ANC 1B and all the work that it has done in the past to help them procure all of the projects that are coming out, and his affectionately helping, or the ANC affectionately helping them through some hard times in dealing with this. So I just wanted to, since there's a couple commissioners here who have been through some of that, give kudos to ANC for being announced properly at the university. It's the first time that he's actually called out the ANC specifically in giving help to them. So I was pretty impressed with that. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Patrick. And I will say, although I think I couldn't attend, I believe that they did invite some commissioners to the groundbreaking. So that didn't go unnoticed. It just was bad timing, at least for me. I don't want to speak for the other commissioners, but I do know that you helped tremendously. And I think Howard really appreciates that, and I appreciate you calling it out. Okay. Now, we do have one other audience member. Let's brief comments, please, if possible.
Thank you, Chairperson. My name's Chris. I live off the U Street corridor and over near 17th Street. And I took a look at the agendas of the Economic Development and Planning committees. The 16th and 17th and U site, the fire station and everything. I don't know. It seems like DEMPED has a new contact for that project. ANC 2B sort of discussed it briefly last night and didn't take any action, but it was kind of a surprise because the DEMPED contact said he had just found out an hour before the meeting that he was supposed to present something. Apparently there's something coming up at the end of the month regarding that site at zoning. And what I was hoping, at least just to put before you all, is sort of the same thing that 2B was contending with, was sort of, but it's directly related to 1B, is to kind of let zoning know that this commission and the neighbors need time to kind of digest this kind of new information coming out in the new year. And I think the zoning commission is typically allows the ANC, if they put a notice before them, an extra month to get constituents and everybody aware of what's going on, especially because we're just finding out about this. So I just wanted to put that before you all.
Yeah, thank you for that, Chris. I think it's something that we'll look into. I have not received, and I don't believe any of the other commissioners have received notice about whatever is happening with the zoning commission. I do know that the RFP hasn't even gone out yet for 16, 17. If it did, we would have, talked about it. There hasn't been a disposition hearing set, so it's nothing that we are hiding or dropping the ball on. That just hasn't been done. I think the question was asked about 16, 17 at the Reeves disposition hearing. And that was the same information that I'm conveying to you now, which was conveyed to people there. we do have someone from DIMPED on, and I believe his email is in the chat. But Commissioner Handerhan, if I'm missing anything, please chime in. And then Commissioner Jones, I do see your hand raised.
Sure. So this is a site that is newly in ANC 1B, just in case that wasn't clear. It's kind of alluded to. So thank you for bringing up the question, Chris. The district did recently upload the district's application and the petition to amend the zoning map around 1617, which might be what you're referring to. I'll drop the link from the zoning in the application portal. And I'll also share the DEMPED landing page, which is a good place to keep the most updated information. I will go back and look at any deadlines as far as when it's coming up for zoning and make sure that we get feedback from the community. This is on our agenda for the February 16th Economic Development Committee meeting.
And we did this week, we did receive letters from Councilmember Nadeau and Councilmember Pinto expressing their support of a library going in there. And then I did receive an email from a resident expressing, I think, potential about the zoning changes and about the library. But as Commissioner Handerhan said, we will look into it, and thank you for flagging. But Commissioner Jones.
Thank you. Just speaking in my capacity as the chair of the Zoning Preservation and Development Committee, I am aware of the proposed zoning change. I don't believe that I've been given official notice or anything that the ANC has great weight on, but I will check on that and make sure. And I'll work with Commissioner Handerhan in his role as chair of the Economic Development Committee to make sure that at minimum one of our committees has a chance to discuss and give feedback on that proposal.
Great. And going to kind of move it along. It has been a very long meeting and we've lost almost 75% of our attendees. So new business, Commissioner Houlihan.
Before I actually start, I know we have one person who has raised their hand. Not I want to stop this meeting as well, but allow her to speak.
Is it possible? And I have received your emails. I saw it today, but I was working my paying job. Is it anything that you can convey, Deborah, to via email for us? You can drop it into the Q&A if that is the case. I'm assuming not. So Commissioner Jones, if you can promote Deborah, but please, if you can keep this brief as much as possible.
Yeah, I know you've had a long night and I've been sitting here all night long too, listening. So I just want to say about the 17th and U, I live right next door. The city has not been doing a good job at keeping us informed about what's going on. They have been doing things and they haven't been updating their project page. We are going to be severely impacted by that project and we are not being given ample opportunity for public engagement. So whatever you guys can do to keep us informed, I don't know what you can do. I just wanted to let you know we are sort of being left out of the process. That's all.
Thank you for flagging, and we will absolutely keep you all informed as much as we know, as we've kind of done with Reeves. So we're kind of along for the ride as well. But again, we will absolutely, as soon as we know things, we will publicize it. We will make sure there's ample time for community feedback. And I do appreciate every community member who has stuck with us through this long meeting. So that does not go unnoticed. I really appreciate that. Now on to new business.
All right.
Commissioner
Thanks for your patience. So as we briefly mentioned at the beginning of this call, 8 days ago, Nellie's was up for discussion. During this meeting, we were able to finally get a signed settlement agreement from Nellie's. I'll walk you through that a little bit. During discussions of ABR committee, issues around noise, hours, diversity, equity, and inclusion training, and security were raised by members. I was able to talk to Nellie's attorney multiple times, and we came to an eventual agreement using approved ABRA language around both security, the use of cameras, keeping the hours, making sure people are trained, ensuring that ABC managers were trained using approved guidelines. We are able to get them to promise a good faith letter to the community talking about the DEI trainings that they have done in the past and that they will promise to continue having in the future. So with that, the signed letter, settlement agreement, I apologize, that I've sent to the chair, I'd like us to be able to vote on that tonight to avoid going to protest next week.
So do we have a motion?
I guess I was leaving it open for communication or, sorry, leaving it open for anyone who wanted to make a comment, but I'm happy to make a motion. I'd like to move that ANC 1B approve the settlement agreement with Nellie's.
Second.
Discussion. Commissioner Kinzik.
Commissioner Holland, just want to say thank you for your efforts. Nellie's has not been easy. I've been here 7 years, and I believe their settlement agreement was from 2014. So it's great to see you making movement. It's appreciated in the neighborhood that we're holding everyone accountable. So thank you for that. And that's it I have. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Is there any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Are there any further comments or any further business? With that, we'll adjourn the meeting at 10:03 p.m. Thank you, commissioners.
Have a good night.